Hello and welcome to James Bond Radio. This is podcast number 35, where we're looking at the second part of our villains review. So I've got with me my Bond aficionado and great mate, Mr. Tom Sears. Say hello, Tom.
G'day, mates. How you going?
G'day, mate. All right, not bad, fella. Yeah. So we're into part 2 of our villains review. So how do you think it went last time?
I think it was good. It was an enjoyable one. I think we haven't done like a list episode in a while. I think the last one we did was probably The Henchman, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it probably was. You're right. Yeah.
So yeah, it was good fun. I enjoyed it, and I'm excited about today's one because, like I always say, like this period of Bond where we're starting with today, which is Kristatos. Yeah. Like the first few movies here is like my weakest point of Bond knowledge, the late Roger period. So I'm excited to kind of delve back into these dudes again and talk villains.
Yeah, I think so. Also, we're getting into the less iconic areas as well, because we've covered all the early Bonds, and that tends to be the majority of the iconic villains. Obviously, you know, Scaramanga, you could say, is pretty iconic, and you've got one or two others. But the majority, when you think Bond villain, most of them are in that earlier part, aren't they? Obviously, there are one or two that crop up and who are like right up there. But so it will be interesting to go through this. And are we going to do the same thing? Are we going to do like a 3-tier thing at the end?
I think so. I think the 3-tier system was quite popular on Facebook. Yeah. Everybody was posting and giving their opinions on the 3 tiers. And there was some people that completely agree with this, some people that were completely different and rated Donald really low, for example. Things like that. So it's interesting to get everybody's perspective. So yeah, I think the 3-tier system I think should maybe be a regular thing we bring back for a lot of James Bond radio shenanigans.
Yeah, that sounds good. So we're obviously going to do a 3-tier system of the villains that we're going to review, but are we then going to try and combine part 1 and part 2 to get our ultimate?
I think we should, man. I think we should go balls out and go all the way. Okay. Yeah. Exciting times.
Tricky. It's going to be good. Yeah. It's going to be good.
It's going to be good.
Forward to it. Yeah. So, how are things in general? You're not calling from the US today, are you? Whereabouts are you?
YouTube viewers will notice I'm back in my bedroom in the UK. You'll notice the familiar backdrop, which I haven't been in for the last sort of 6 months or so, I suppose. But yeah, I would love to say it's good to be back in England, but it's so bloody cold that I'm struggling a little bit. But yeah, it was all right. I flew over, uneventful flight. My telly on my seat didn't work, so I had no telly to watch. So I just listened to podcasts instead. And then they lost my bloody suitcase as well, which I've only just got back today. So I've been 2 days with no underpants or anything like that. So my regions have been unsupported for 2 days, which I'm outraged about.
And we know how quickly you go through your underpants as well.
Indeed, very quickly.
Very quickly, yeah. Well, I'm glad you're back and you got all your stuff anyway, so that's good.
Thanks very much. I wanted to give a little shout out actually to the Quiz Up app. Again, we mentioned it a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah,
the Quiz Up app on iPhone, I think it's on Android as well. And it's basically a quiz game that you it pairs you off against somebody else in the world about whatever kind of topic you choose. And there's a James Bond section with a leaderboard and all that kind of stuff. Now, when I mentioned it, I was challenged by several JBR listeners because you can challenge users. Wow. One of whom was Mr. Warren Ringham from Cue the Music, and we've had a little battle back and forth. Now that dude has been relentless in his pursuit of the top 10. So basically, within a day of him signing up to Quiz Up, he was like I think top 5 in the UK, and then the last time I checked, he was like number 3 or number 2, something like that. So
whereabouts are you at the moment?
I'm probably number like 97 or something ridiculous.
So you slip down if you don't do it.
Exactly. Yeah. So you got to keep it up. You got to keep it regular. So you need to get involved on that, man. We need to go head to head.
It's these toilet stops. You obviously have quite a lot of them, and I need to
spend a lot of time on the throne, man.
yeah. It's a good place where you can do activities like that. So I'll get on it. I'll be frightened to challenge Warren though if he's top 3 in the UK.
Absolutely, yeah. He's been on it. So before we get cracking onto the meat and potatoes of today's episode, make sure you come and like us on Facebook. It's just facebook.com/James Bond Radio. On Twitter, we're at James Bond Radio. And of course, come and leave us a comment on the website. All the episodes and blog posts we do, there's a little comment system and there's some good discussion going on over there. And also, if you wouldn't mind going to iTunes and leaving us a nice glowing 5-star review, that really helps us to rank higher in iTunes and get more listeners. And last but not least, make sure you subscribe on iTunes as well. That way you never miss an episode. I know you've missed a few so far, Chris, and you put you out of sorts all week, didn't it?
Well, I was hospitalised for quite some time, yeah. They had to scan all over my body. You know that jelly that they use with when they do ultrasounds?
Yeah.
Basically, my whole body was covered in that, and they had to scan me, and it was really cold, and it made me sort of shiver.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go through that experience again because it was.
I can imagine. Yeah. No, it's like sometimes sometimes when you're on certain medications and they say you got to phase this out. You can't stop immediately, otherwise there could be repercussions. It's the same with James Bond Radio. If you miss an episode, there could be some serious sort of complications, really. So you got to look out for that.
Yeah, it does damage your health, definitely. It does damage your health. Now, going on the sort of Facebook, Twitter and all that malarkey, we just this second, or not so long ago, had a nice little retweet, didn't we?
We did have a retweet. I'm having a bit of a clear out, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to give away some of my Bond stuff. And I thought, I'm going to give away my entire set of Charlie Higson Young Bonds. So by the whole set...
Very kind of you as well.
Well, what can I say? I'm a generous man. It's the whole set. So it's Silverfin, Silverfin through to By Royal Command, and the little extra book, the Danger Society, the Young Bond dossier.
Which I've never read.
Oh,
I've never read that. Is that good?
You need to get involved in that.
There.
Yeah,
really?
There's an extra short story in there as well, which is brilliant. Okay. You got to watch that. Okay. You got to read that.
I'm going to have to get that.
So there's that and the Silverfin graphic novel as well. So it's like the comprehensive Charlie Higson collection. So basically, if you go to Facebook, you'll see a thread about that where you can get involved and enter and possibly win. Only open to those of you in the UK, sadly, because obviously books are heavy. And if I've got to post it to like Alaska or something, it's probably going to cost me 500 quid or something. So only to UK listeners, sadly, but you can get involved. And good old Charlie Higson himself retweeted the little tweet that I put out. So the man's on the case. The man himself is putting it out there as well. So good on him. Good on Charlie.
Good on Charlie. So how do people actually get involved then? Just in case anyone's listening in the UK, what do they have to do?
Okay, so basically there's a thread on the Facebook page with the details. What you have to do is you've got to leave us a lovely glowing 5-star review on iTunes and then repost that review onto that Facebook thread. And then what I'm going to do is choose my favorite one, or I might choose one at random. I haven't quite decided yet. And then I will, and that will be the winner. So review on iTunes and then post on Facebook, and away you go.
Excellent. Sounds good. So last time we talked a little bit about the JBR t-shirts, and we had 1 or 2 photos which came through, and in the last couple of weeks we've had a few more, haven't we?
We've the whole crew's getting involved now, Chris. They've been posting their photos, some of them in front of their Bond posters or their Bond collections and all that kind of stuff, which is great. We've had Mr. Q the Music himself, Warren Ringham. He was the first one, actually. He was right out of the gate there.
Excellent stuff.
We've had, who else have we had? We've got a list here. We've got Paul Coulthard. We've got Josh Trett, who we might remember from the first anniversary episode. Good old Matthew Grice, disguised as Daniel Craig with his face mask on. Good to see him not in his Moonraker pajamas for a change. We got good old Sean O'Hare. We've got Agent Golden Voice himself. We've got Rebecca Andrews, who had a touch of the flu and was hiding her face because she was feeling a bit poorly, but looking good in her t-shirt nonetheless.
Feeling a bit woolly? You mean Simon Woolly?
Maybe. I don't want to cast any aspersions, but there we go. We got Antoinette Michelli. She's there. We've got Jeff Silence looking buff in his t-shirt. David West, Enno Urbines from Germany with his cool gun pose. We've got Darren Legg, who's got an amazing picture of him with holding a gun with his t-shirt on in front of his Bond autograph wall. He's got a Lazenby autograph and it looks like all of them on the wall, actually, which is pretty cool. We got Roy Ludwig III in front of his Bond collection. We've got William Vernon Jones. We've got I don't know how to pronounce this last name, but George Ferenz, who with his puppy, who he calls 00.5.
00.5, that is cute. Oh,
we got Mr. Dressing Like Bond himself, Harris Thomas, rocking his t-shirt, Ed Arroyo, and good old Ralph Lewandowski. What he's done is he's gone full gun barrel, Chris, and he's gone full gun barrel. He's there with his t-shirt on, and he's in the 007 gun barrel, firing into the camera, which I thought was a nice little touch.
Well done, Ralph.
Good on you, Ralph.
Like it.
Yeah, good stuff. So good on you for joining in and sending you photos. Anybody who's left who hasn't posted a photo of them who bought their t-shirt, make sure you get involved. Come onto the Facebook page and post your photo, and it'll be good to see you.
I know there was a couple, I think we heard from a couple, Nicholas Ills. He sent a message in recently saying that he'd only got his. Obviously, a few in the States, I think it took a bit longer. So there's probably, the remaining few are probably those that are in the States or elsewhere sort of in the world. So as soon as you get those, we kind of like want to see if you can take them to any Bond locations, obviously in front of your Bond sort of toys and memorabilia, as a lot of you have. And if you if you want to wear it post-coital, you know, whenever you want to wear it, it's fine with us.
Or preferably mid-coital, you know, that would be the good thing. And, I mean, if you're rocking a JBR t-shirt, that's enough of an aphrodisiac to get the ball rolling. So I feel like, you know, keep it on for the whole show. Yeah,
too right. Sounds good. Well, speaking of clothing, now I haven't got my JBR t-shirt on today, but I thought I'd rock my Daniel Craig Quantum of Solace-esque jacket. So what do you think of this? It's a little bit, you know, what do you think?
It's like you're about to raid a hotel in the middle of the desert, Chris. That's what it looks like. It's looking good, man.
Well, I just need to scruff it up a little bit, you know, get a bit of dirt, a bit of sand on it, rip a few holes in it, and get a Walther in my hand, and then I'll be good to go.
A Walther PPK and preferably an Olga Kurilenko in the other. That would be nice.
Preferably, that would be pretty good. Yeah, we'll see what we can do. I'm working on it.
There we go. So that's the intro to today's episode out the way. Let's get some theme tune on the go.
Here we go.
Who are you?
My name's Bond. James Bond.
James Bond.
Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British hand up, sir.
Welcome to James Bond Radio. News, reviews, and discussion of all things 007.
Pussy.
As you can see, I have no problem with female authority.
Oh, pipe down, 007.
You expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Okay, so we've got some Spectre shenanigans that have been going on this week, Chris, haven't we? First of all, very recently we had the brand new teaser poster.
Wow!
Now
the teaser poster.
We had the teaser. I thought that was the teaser, but that was a teaser to the teaser, and now we've got a new teaser, which has just been released. Now we actually haven't spoken about this yet, have we? So
we haven't yet.
We've basically got Daniel in the roll neck, the black roll neck and trousers with the brown leather shoulder holster on, rocking the Live and Let Die look. So, I mean, that's pretty shocking, don't you think?
Well, I wasn't expecting it, but you see it straight away. I mean, anyone that's like more than a casual Bond fan will know straight away that's Roger Moore, Live and Let Die, you know, pose. It's, you know, towards the end of Live and Let Die when he's rocking their commando outfit, when he's trying to get into Kananga's sort of island and stuff. And straight away you see that, and again it's another Mendes linked to Live and Let Die. He must love Live and Let Die. Like he's got a hard on for Live and Let Die, hasn't he? But rightly so. Live and Let Die is awesome. But I do like these little things that he keeps putting. And Daniel looks fucking good, I must say. Like he looks rock in this, and you know the hair's looking good. He's looking pretty buff. He's looking like he means business, and the stance is there. And it got me excited, I must admit. What do you think?
Yeah, it's good, man. I think from the Daniel, like if you think about these teaser posters and the film posters in general for Bond lately, they're very different, aren't they? Like in terms of the older ones we used to get. The old ones used to, you know, the old ones would always be like that sort of painted look, like, you know, the old Live and Let Die posters and all that kind of stuff. And then Bond would be surrounded by his women, and then there'd be some like cars flying all over the place and all that kind of stuff. Whereas with the Daniel Craig ones, they've got that kind of like men's fashion line kind of vibe about it, haven't they? Do you know what I mean? Like you look at Casino Royale and it's almost like it could be like a men's fragrance or something. Do you know what I mean? But my favorite of the Daniel Craig teasers so far is the Casino Royale one where he's at the casino table, he's got his hand on the gun. You know that one? I love that one, man.
And collars open with the tie down either side. He rocks that.
That's a great one. I love that poster. But yeah, so this new one it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. It's just Daniel against like a grey backdrop. But yeah, it's interesting to see, because at the end of the day, you know, if you're going to have an outfit for when you're going on like a special little nighttime raid or whatever, you're probably going to not just wear it the once and then never wear it again. So you know, I wonder, because we don't know whether this is like, whether in this timeline Live and Let Die is going to happen at some point, or whether this is an alternate dimension. So, you know, maybe that's just his sort of like his go-to kind of nighttime raid outfit for now. What do you think?
Well, I think so. I think what it tells us, because we've seen a still of Daniel in all black when he's on the snow, isn't he? So he's got his kind of almost Majesty's outfit there, and they're tapping into these films, aren't they? The ones that you know, obviously we like, which is really cool. But he's got his sort of Majesty's outfit in that one. This one is clearly the Live and Let Die one. But what I like about it is the hint that he's got to wear it in the film, without a doubt. We know that. When Roger wears it, like you mentioned just then, it was a nighttime raid. he kind of wears a similar one in Goldfinger when he's raiding Goldfinger's.
That's true.
His in Switzerland, the factory when he wears all black, and we've mentioned it a couple of times before. But what we love is Bond doing sneaky stuff, sneaking around, especially if it's at night.
Yeah.
He's going from building to building, hiding from people, waiting until they pass, climbing up ladders. Doing all this stuff, and this is a perfect outfit for it. And I hope this means that it's going to be him sneaking around Bond at night doing something or other. I don't know. What do you think? That would be awesome.
With an outfit like that, I would predict there's going to be some sneakiness, and I love Bondian sneakiness, man. I love it. So it's good, man. Like I've said before, like I don't really like the nods to previous Bond films, like the Komodo dragons, the girl covered in oil. I'm just like that does like those kind of throwbacks kind of bug me a little bit. Whereas something like this, where it's just like a little tiny nod to an outfit that Bond once wore, like God knows how many years ago now. Like I like that. I think that's cool. I'm excited about it.
Well, we say that a lot about all these things. They seem to be hitting the right notes with this film and all the little things that they're doing. Mendes is clever. He knows what he's doing. Obviously, Eon know what they're doing. Craig knows what he's doing. But every little thing that we're getting now is like, none of it is cheesy in terms of stuff that you don't want to see. None of it puts you off. It's all clever. It's all original as well. Like, the gunshot in the window and the octopus for the other one. And it just is just saying that everything is looking good. It's all good. It's all hitting the right notes. It's all what you want to see. And it's great. It just makes it even more exciting, and it just builds up even more, doesn't it?
Well, it does. And you know what's even more exciting than that, Chris?
Monica Bellucci on the beach without much on.
Well, there is that, and hopefully that does happen, but in the film. But I was referring to the fact that they've told us when the date of the teaser trailer, the first actual teaser trailer, is going to be released.
And when is that, Tom?
Which is the 28th of March.
Right, put it in your diary, everyone. 28th of March.
There it is.
What are you going to be doing on the 28th of March, Tom?
Probably covering myself in some kind of butter, or maybe some of that gel that you've been playing around with.
I've got some left over.
just doing that in anticipation. Maybe going shopping for a black roll neck and black trousers and maybe some of those goggles as well from that first little picture. So I can be in costume for the teaser. That'll be nice.
That sounds good.
But yeah, mate, are you going to watch the teaser? That's the big question.
Well, this is what I was thinking because. Well, first of all, I was going to ask you, are you going to record your live reaction to watching the teaser? Because after the title one, I think it would be a huge shame and misfortune if you didn't do that. So that's my request. Will you accept that one?
Absolutely. Baton is thrown down. I accept the glove. Yeah.
Okay, so for me, the teaser trailer, it's so hard. I want to see it, but I almost don't want to see it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Did you didn't watch the Skyfall trailer or anything, did you?
No. Well, I caught little snippets unintentionally.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually watch the trailer. No.
If it's anything like, because you obviously get the teaser trailer and then you get the full trailer later on.
I definitely wouldn't watch the full trailer.
And I feel like the teaser trailer is one of those where they just give you just enough to intrigue you. I remember the Skyfall one, and it was just literally flashes of different scenes, and it was just like, wow, this looks great. And then but you never really got any details of the plot. And what I worry about these days is when you go to the cinema and it's like trailers are like 5 minutes long and they give away all the plot twists, and it's like, why are you doing this? And it ruins it. So I might be in the same camp as you. I'm definitely going to watch the teaser trailer, but I might skip the full trailer.
Okay.
Because by the tradition of lately, they do give away way too much.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, if I do watch anything, it will be that as well. I'm not going to know if I watch it until March the 28th. What time is it on March 28th?
I don't know. We don't know yet. Yeah.
Okay. Until that day, I don't know if I'm going to watch it. I'll just have to see on the day.
Maybe we'll do like with the Pinewood News Press event. Maybe we'll do like a live watching of it as it comes through on the website or something like that.
Yeah, so we'll do it on. Get everyone on at the same time. Yeah, that'd be cool. And we'll have an instant sort of forum going, then get everyone's thoughts on it and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. Yeah. So, well, we've already chatted about Spectre. We should move into our speculation section for this week. So, as per usual, if you don't want to hear anything Spectre related, skip forward to
39 minutes and 10 seconds.
you've been warned. If you hear anything you don't want to hear, then, it's not our fault. Don't blame us.
Mm-hmm.
You should have skipped forward. But with that said, Chris, I myself, and I'm not going to say what it is, but I've stumbled upon 2 spoilers completely accidentally myself this week.
Right. Okay.
2 of which, they're not massive ones.
Right.
One of them I kind of suspected anyway, but it was just like, it would have been nice not to know that.
Do I need to get out the room when you talk about that or not?
Well, no, I'm not gonna say anymore.
Oh, right.
I'm just gonna say
that
that's just 2 I've stumbled across this week, and it's not by any means a major kind of plot event, but it's one of those things that I thought, that would have been nice to not know about.
Not to have known.
Yeah, but there we go. So what's going on? What have you got?
Okay, so speculation for this time. As always, we'll start with a bit of filming news. So filming is now being completed in Rome. We mentioned previously they were doing the car chase there, and they were also filming in Whitehall. The first unit went over to Whitehall while the second unit was finishing up in Rome, but that's all now wrapped. The crew, as you just mentioned, they're currently shooting in Mexico, or at least they're prepping in Mexico. They'll be shooting from, or they are in the middle of shooting, and they started on the 20th of March. And they're there for 4 days. So from the 20th to the 24th, or is that 5? It's probably 5 if you count 20. Now, what we do know is that the Mexico City sequence, it's widely expected that this will be the pre-title sequence. So I know previously we thought that perhaps the Austria sequence with the cable car and everything else might have been the pre-title sequence. Perhaps that's the climax now. Who knows? Perhaps it's in the middle of the film.
Yeah.
So, because I know they were out in Austria for quite a long time, weren't they? And they had a lot of action going on. Obviously, a lot of people, a big, massive crew. Obviously, wherever they go, they've got a big crew. But, there was a big set piece there, basically, put it that way. And if it's not at the start, you got to get a few through the middle, but obviously the big ones at the end. So, so we know that it's not the start, the Austria one. We know that Mexico City is the pre-title sequence.
That's not even a rumor, because they've actually put that out on Twitter. They've actually said that they're in Mexico City to film the pre-title sequence. So that's in stone.
Oh, well, there we go. There we go. So we know that for sure. Now, in addition, as part of that, now we've our news correspondent from Canada, Linda Zhu, also helped us. Station C also mentioned this as well. Basically, Mexican actress Stephanie Sigman, she was confirmed as winning the role of Estrella. Now, there were previous rumors about Penelope Cruz being Estrella, which could have happened really, because I know it was a small cameo and it might have been but either which way, it's not her. We know it's Stephanie Sigman. Now, Estrella character is meant to be within the pre-title sequence as well. Obviously, she's being filmed in the Mexico scene. Now, the character of Estrella is said to be an agent assisting Bond on his mission in Mexico. Could she possibly be another 00? Another 00, maybe a female 00. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? So we know that she's in the pre-title sequence, she's in Mexico, and she's assisting Bond. So it's nice because we've got a good female Estrella. I mean, I don't know how much of the story she might just be in the pre-titles, because like the cigar girl, she's just in the pre-titles. You don't see her anything else. She could be like that, or she could be a character that's, later on in the film as well. You see her, so it'll be it's an interesting to see what happens with that one.
Do you know what, this Day of the Dead thing? To be honest, that strikes me as like a real Bondian thing that should have been in a Bond movie before now. Because there's always those kind of like striking things, like, the Junkanoo parade in Thunderball. You've got the carnival in Moonraker. All those kinds of things. It's a very Bondian style thing. So I'm looking forward to that, man. I think that's going to be good. Now,
I am as well. Yeah.
One thing that is interesting about that is Silva had a bit of a kind of, those kind of drawings of like the Day of the Dead skulls. They're like almost like cartoon skulls with like top hats on and stuff. Like that was a very Day of the Dead kind of look to it. Do you remember like when it says "Think on your sins" on the laptop and all that kind of stuff?
That's right,
so I wonder whether there's going to be any link to that guy in Spectre. That's an interesting thought. Maybe.
Yeah, that is true, because it's almost like, do you remember from Russia with Love when they're sort of saying about, for the death of Dr. No, we're taking out revenge on you.
Yeah.
Raoul could have, perhaps he was somehow a part of that organisation. I know it wasn't mentioned in Skyfall, but maybe that is a link. Who knows? But yeah, interesting. That's an interesting point. Speaking of the Festival of the Dead, obviously we know that's in Mexico, so we're assuming that that's part of the pre-titles as well. Now, what we do know, this is I don't know if this has been said as well, but we know that Lucia Sciarra is an assassin. We know that she is going to be chased by Bond through the festival. So while the Festival of Dead is happening, Bond is going to be chasing her. So it sounds like she might have assassinated someone, perhaps, and then Bond chases her. It really brings back sort of Thunderball memories. Although Bond is being chased in Thunderball, this could now be the reverse, where he's chasing someone else through sort of a festival or carnival. And with, like you said, with all this face painting and all the big things and fancy dressing colours, that could be really, really good. So now we're not sure. I believe Lucia Sciarra, she was also in the Austrian scenes. Now, what that got me thinking, actually, if she's an assassin, now we've been told she's an assassin, pre-title sequence, great. If we see her in Austria, do you know, I had a thought, which I think would be amazing, where if you had like a female assassin on skis after Bond, almost a bit like a female version of Eric Kriegler, but like a female skier who's like basically Olympic standard and she can handle guns. And I don't know, I just like the sort of, the idea of that, just this kick-ass female sort of villainous skier assassin.
Well, it's going to be funny, isn't it, in the sense that, like, you remember when they put the call out for Hinks, like for somebody who was certain weight and height and skills and imposing kind of physical stuff and all that stuff. So I think, like, it's going to be, because remember in that call out they said they're looking for an iconic henchman in the I didn't say in the vein of Odd Job or Jaws, but belonging to that kind of history of henchmen. So it's like with the kind of one photo we've seen of Hinks so far, he's got, like you said, the Jason Statham flat cap on. He's got that sort of double-barreled pistol, which is a kind of cool little touch. Yeah, that looks cool. Which is interesting. I've never seen a gun like that before. Yeah. But I do wonder, like, what is his thing going to be? Because if he's going to be an iconic henchman, he's got to have a thing.
He will. He will definitely have a thing.
So I don't know whether his thing is that double-barreled gun. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe his thing is his thingy, and he uses that.
Maybe his real henchman thing is his name's going to change to Mr. Dong or something.
Yeah, Mr. Goldmember or whatever. Yeah,
or something along those lines. But yeah. So if Lucia Sciarra is a baddie as well, we've since learned, maybe she's going to have a little thing as well.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, I think we always suspected she was going to be a baddie because she's too naughty looking, isn't she, to be a good Bond girl. She's just got that naughty look about her.
Yeah, which we love. But that's But I like that double barrel gun. That's a good point, and it would be nice. I mean, if that is his thing, that's great because it is something cool, especially if it does something cool.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he might have something else as well. I'm not sure. We'll see. But either which way, I think he's going to be great. Okay, so there's a little bit more now. This news, I'm really, really disappointed. I almost shed a tear when I heard this.
I bet you did.
Fellow JBR listener Matt Batten will back me up on this. Now, Spectre was denied the opportunity to film inside the Welsh Senedd Chamber in Cardiff. Now, this is where the Welsh Assembly get together and they discuss their, politics and stuff. Now, basically, for me, it probably is a 20-minute walk down the road. If Spectre had been filming there, I would have been like, right, I'm taking a week off work. I'm going to camp out there. I'm going to hike up and abseil down a building to see what's going on. I'd speak to people. If it was filming here, I'd probably know a couple of people who might be working on it and I could have had an inroad there. Yeah. I mean, the fact they would have been so close, see the crew. I could have got to meet Babs, even if security was holding me back. I would have been like, Babs!
Yeah.
And
I'm sure that would have gone down really well.
I'm sure it would have done. Yeah, there's nothing. I'll be in a newspaper or in prison or something. But it's literally would have been on my doorstep almost. Now, unfortunately, obviously, they said no. Basically, I think they said previously they've helped shows like Doctor Who and Sherlock, but I don't think they've filmed in that actual room. The room that Spectre, that the Eon wanted to film in, was a very specific room, like the main sort of debating room, as it were. Really brought back visions of the United Nations room in Live and Let Die. Again, another Live and Let Die thing. So perhaps there is going to be a meeting thing.
Well, do you know what? When I saw a photo of that, I was like, that room. You pronounce it Senedd.
Yes, Seneth.
Okay, because it's if you want to check it out online, it's spelled Senedd.
Yeah.
It's the Senedd debating chamber in Cardiff. Now, as soon as I saw a picture, I was like, man, that looks like Ken Adam designed that room. Like, it looks like an old school Bond set. Like, it just does straight out of the gate. And I thought to myself, like, either we're going to have like a United Nations kind of scene like we have at the beginning of You Only Live Twice, beginning of Live and Let Die, where they're all kind of debating about what to do, or that might be a Spectre meeting room. I'm leaning towards the UN because it does look a bit government to be a Spectre thing, but either way, it's interesting.
Yeah, it does, but I thought that was a really good idea because when we saw the scenes, when was it Blenheim Palace, when they were outside, we saw all these cars. That could have possibly been an interior room within that palace, perhaps.
That's true.
And if it had been a Quantum or Spectre meeting, so we know that there's going to be a big meeting, whether it is a UN sort of style meeting or whether it is a Quantum. I mean, there's got to be a Quantum or a Spectre meeting in this film. There has to be. Just imagine like that Thunderball type Spectre. As soon as you see it with the sort of Spectre or Quantum agents, how you just would be like, it'd be so good, wouldn't it?
Do you know what? I think we're going to see a lot of that in this film. Like my prediction is we're going to have a lot of these sort of like classic Bond moments that are just going to like. I hope when they're executed, they're not just sort of cheap rip-offs of things that have gone before, but just like new versions of those things. You know,
clever
like
sort of stuff,
in the sense that like. You know, the classic Spectre meeting room from Thunderball with the the electrified chairs. Yeah, obviously they're not going to be able to do something like that because that's too Austin Powers. But like, an updated version of that meeting room would just. I mean, imagine seeing that big board table and with all the chairs and all the dudes sitting around that. I mean, that's oh god, I've got myself excited, Chris, just talking about it.
Well, hopefully we'll get to see. I'm sure we will get to see something about that. But going back to it, basically they said. It wasn't a drama studio, but for them, I think it's a missed opportunity because you think of the money that would have come in to. I know it probably wouldn't have been a long shoot, but the amount of money that would have come in for the local public, the publicity, the fact that you'd make me very happy, and like I just think they just really missed out, and I think it's a shame that they didn't for lots of reasons. But
I mean. At the end of the day, what else are they going to be talking about in that debating chamber that's more important? It's like, where are we going to herd the sheep this week? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like when you could have a Bond scene that's going to immortalize that building forever. Apparently it was just like one person that refused it, didn't it? Wasn't it?
I'm not sure in that much detail, but I know that they did go back to Eon and sort of say, you can't film here, but would you like to film here, here, or here? But obviously none of the others looked like Ken Adams' set. So they were like, well, no, we'll just find somewhere else. But I think they really missed a trick there, which is a shame.
I'm sure they could knock something up at Pinewood pretty sharpish, couldn't they?
Yeah. They'll find somewhere or knock something up. But it's just, it's one of those things. It's like you with when you're working by the London Eye in that aquarium or whatever it was, and Tim Dalton was there, and then you ran outside and he wasn't there, or Brosnan was there, or whoever it was, and you're that close to something happening. Yeah. And it's like, I know you were probably closer on that day than I am, but you know what I mean? It's just that little link that you want, and it's just a shame when it doesn't happen, but there we are. Okay, so we had another photo still released. Now, this is another clapperboard one. Now, previously, we had a clapperboard still with the Royal Dalton British Bulldog, which everyone's sort of seen by now. Mm-hmm. Now, this time we had the clapperboard, and next to it was the book Birds of the West Indies by a certain Mr. James Bond. Now, this has obviously made an appearance previously in the series with Die Another Day, with one of the probably my worst dialogue scene in the whole series, perhaps.
I'm just here for the birds.
Oh, wow. That's a mouthful. Oh, my God.
I can't wait to review that film, man. It's gonna be a bloodbath. I think that's probably gonna be a 5-parter.
We could talk about that for a long time. But anyway, so obviously we saw it in that film. Is it going to make a comeback in this film? And if it does, is it just going to be subtly in the back? What do you think? Obviously, they're not going to make a plot point out of it, but do you think it'll be seen? I suppose it must be somehow. Maybe it's in Bond's office. Maybe it's in Bond's office.
I don't know. It looks like it's in like either an apartment or somebody's office, doesn't it? Like the background of that photo. So
I think it'll be Bond's apartment actually. So I think you'll have the Dalton dog, and then The Royal Dalton Dog, as in not Timothy Dalton Dog, because that would be weird.
Timmy's bulldog sitting in the corner.
Yeah. And then in the background on the shelf, maybe you'll just see the spine of it, perhaps. But anyway, it's another sort of interesting still, isn't it? So, yeah, that's pretty much speculation for this week. On to sort of other Bond news. Now, I didn't actually get to see this live when it happened, but I have seen it retrospectively, thanks to the wonders of the internet. But, so we know that James Bond comic relief sketch was sent out, and I'm sure you've seen it. And what did you think of that?
Well, it had some very kind of mixed reviews, leaning towards the negative, I would say, on the Facebook. So for those who haven't seen it, it is up on YouTube. So if you type in comic relief James Bond sketch, you'll find it. But the premise of it was that Daniel Craig doesn't actually speak like that, and he has to have his voice dubbed.
Speaks a bit like this.
And he spoke like a little girl. And then
that was my attempt at a little girl. It wasn't very good.
It was good. It was good.
Oh, was it? Okay.
And then so they were doing that, and then they were saying about how Roger had to be dubbed as well, and he had like what's the name of that comedian lady, the Geordie comedian lady?
Oh, it's Sarah Milligan.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's like she was dubbing Roger as if that was his real voice, which is kind of like, I for comic relief, you don't expect like real highbrow, high level humor. It's usually just silly fun, and it was written by David Walliams from Little Britain.
Oh, was it really? Yeah.
So it's going to be that sort of silly humor, but David Walliams is a massive Bond fan. He's famously a massive Bond fan. So good for him for getting involved. Yeah. But I just thought it was a bit of lighthearted fun for a good cause. Really, if you were expecting like top level comedy, I think you're always going to be disappointed in that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but there were a few things I liked about it. I really liked Naomi Harris as obviously Moneypenny with Johnny Vegas. Was it Johnny Vegas who was dubbing her? It was, wasn't it? And that bit I really liked. I thought she nailed it, and obviously Johnny Vegas nailed it as well.
That's the bit that made me laugh the most. Actually, I thought Naomi Harris was the best bit of that.
Yeah, she was good, and I also liked the fact that we got to see Michael G. Wilson, because get to see him involved a bit, because obviously he missed the title release, didn't he? Only Babs and Mendes were there, so it was nice to see him getting involved. So that was really good. And
he's just recovering from a bit of surgery or something, wasn't it? That's why he was out of action.
Yeah, I think so. I hope he's better. He seemed to be in good spirits and stuff.
Yeah.
So hopefully he's doing all right. So so it wasn't a huge barrel of laughs in terms of falling on the floor laughter, but it's pleasant enough to watch, and it's nice to see a bit of Roger and obviously a bit of Daniel, and it's pretty good. The other news is just a little bit about Spectre related. Basically, it's Andrew Scott, obviously playing Denby. He had a little interview. I mean, obviously he's not allowed to give anything much away, but about his experience, he said that while he was acting for the first few days, he had the Bond film permanently playing in his head, as you probably would, and really enjoyed it. But he did go on to say, when questioned about him being like this good villain, obviously we know him from Sherlock and stuff, he mentioned that people who don't have a dark side are a little bit suspicious. Now, is he just referring to his past characters, or could possibly he mean that Denby has a dark side as well? What do you think?
I think, and shamefully, I still haven't watched Sherlock yet, so I haven't seen him in it, but I don't think you cast somebody like that who's known to be a villain in a role that's not at least a little bit villainous. So I think, as we predicted before, I think he's going to be an MI6 man who's basically working, maybe not even like an enemy spy for Spectre, but maybe he's just like one of those who's trying to close down MI6 or something like that. You know what I mean? Saying, like, we've got to do budget cuts and get rid of MI6 or something like that. I imagine that's what Denby's the role he's gonna play. Cool. But maybe he'll be one of the Spectre's people everywhere. We don't know.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. What is funny is that all this news that's coming out now, we're talking a bit about Lucius Sciarra, obviously Estrella, and Denby. Oberhauser's kind of taken a bit of there's not a huge amount coming out about him. And that's obviously the big one that everyone wants to know about and find out about.
Yeah.
I think, we'll start to get a bit more about that character as we near towards release date, but we'll have to wait and see. There we are. So that's pretty much all for news. Have we had any SpeakPipe messages or emails?
We've had some emails from some listeners. We've had an email all the way from Tokyo, Japan, from JBR listener Daisuke Beppu, who says, "Dear James Bond Radio, a great admirer of your show, which I listen to on the subway to and from work. I live and work in Tokyo, and my office is in fact within walking distance from the Hotel New Otani, which is the hotel that was used as the exterior for Osato Chemicals in the movie You Only Live Twice. It was a nice day today, so I decided to walk over there on my lunch break. I managed to get to the front parking lot of the hotel and take this very short video on my iPhone. So let's play that for everybody right now." So how cool is that? It looks pretty much exactly the same, doesn't it?
I know. I mean, I do want to go to Japan now. There's a couple of things I want to do is go to Tokyo, stay in that hotel, and then get like a walking trip to the actual volcano from You Only Live Twice. Those are the two things I'd love to do in Japan. Well, and snowboard. But anyway, that's a non-Bond like thing. But no, I mean, great little thing. And just imagine having that down the road. You know, one of the easily recognisable Bond locations. That could have happened to me if they'd bloody filmed Spectre in. Well,
anyways, damn it. but yeah, like the exterior of that looks great. I mean, it's like that part where he runs out and the guys are stood on that kind of upper road bit shooting at him from like the balcony sort of area, and then Aki pulls up in the car. Like that whole area is identical, which I love. Awesome, we love that, don't we?
Yeah.
He says, "I personally have never stayed in the hotel and am not associated with it in any way, but I'm sure that any fan of Bond and your show, particularly anyone who is seeking to buy fermentation chemicals, monosodium glutamate and ascorbic acid, as well as to get a license to manufacture, will surely enjoy staying at the Hotel New Otani the next time he or she is in Tokyo. Best regards, Daisuke." So there we go. How cool is that?
That's brilliant. Well done on the pronunciation of the name. That sounded brilliant.
I hope I've got that right.
Yeah. And B, now, if we ever go to Japan, if we ever stay in that hotel, are you going to be Mr. Fisher or am I going to be Mr. Fisher?
Well, I suppose we have to trade places sometimes, don't we? So when we were in that imposter lift in London that was claiming to be the Diamonds Are Forever lift, I got to be Bond in that and you were Peter Franks. So I guess whatever happens next, you get to be Bond and I get to be whoever.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll be Mr. Fisher. You can be Helga Brandt. And
all right, cool. Yeah.
Sounds good. Right, okay.
We also had another email from Joseph or Yosef, I'm not quite sure, but he didn't leave his last name, and he asked quite an intriguing question. He says, "Hello, I've only just discovered your podcast, so I don't know yet if you've already discussed this, but could you guys please weigh in on what type of music you think Bond would listen to? I'd love to drive around /work/shag knowing I'm playing the tunes that Bond would have probably chosen himself if he were me. What do you think?" Now, that is an interesting question.
Don't we? We know what it's not.
We know what it's not. We know it's not the Beatles, that's for sure.
We know it's not the Beatles, that's true.
But, personally, I'm quite
partial. It's a good question.
It is. And I personally, for, mid-coitus, I'm a big fan of putting on the Live and Let Die soundtrack, just that like that really does the job, that one. Yeah. That's a personal favourite for me. As to what Bond would listen to, what are your thoughts, Chris?
Well, I think it depends on what Bond you're looking at, because obviously you got Bond in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties and so on. And obviously the music style for the Bond of that generation would change, wouldn't it? So, yeah, I don't know. I think Bond of the modern day, it is a really interesting question, but it's a hard one to answer because it's like you I don't know, you're putting yourself into has he ever, it's a Fleming novel, did Bond ever sit and listen to jazz? Is that part of it? There's an inkling of that somewhere.
Do you know what? That's my thought. Is personally, I feel like Bond wouldn't be a music fan. Like I just don't think he'd be interested in it. But I think if he was to listen to music, it would be some like obscure, weird, fucked up jazz that nobody else really likes apart from him. Do you know what I mean? That kind of old school jazz. I would have thought like that, especially Fleming's Bond would listen to that.
Fleming Bond would. Yeah. I think whereas the Daniel Craig Bond, it would be Taylor Swift and
maybe
Ed Sheeran,
Katy Perry or something like that.
Yeah. bit of Christina Aguilera if he's feeling, dirty or whatever.
But yeah, no, it's funny. I remember reading an interview with Daniel, and he said when he works out at the gym, he likes to listen to the Foo Fighters.
Okay.
And I thought, isn't that funny? But I couldn't imagine his Bond listening to the Foo Fighters.
No,
I don't
think
think that would be a thing.
No. I think he'd just listen to the Majesty's theme tune as he's skiing down the hill.
Yeah, he bloody well would, wouldn't he? Yeah.
It's a good question. Hey, actually, let's just put that out to the audience. So for anyone who's listening, if you can think of what music you think James Bond, the character, would listen to, you can either do it by the decade or just James Bond in general, or Daniel Craig, James Bond now, and then throw out a few bits of music of what you think he'd like. It'll be interesting to hear what people think because, it's not really been discussed that much. Has it?
I wonder if he ever did go and listen to Moneypenny's Barry Manilow collection.
Oh, well, there we go. Yeah. I don't think he probably did. I think that's probably another one that we can sort of say he probably wasn't into. But obviously Moneypenny was. So there we go. Yeah.
Good for her.
Interesting question. Nice one, Tracy.
So over on the website this week, good old Linda Zhu, as we mentioned, has put up another This Week in James Bond news roundup, just talking a little bit more about the Stephanie Sigmund signing up to the cast, and there's going to be a screening of On Her Majesty's at a movie festival in LA coming up later this month, and a little bit more about the comic relief sketch. So if you want to watch that, you can go and watch that over on the website as well, and check out Linda's latest Station C news update.
Yeah, I'd love to see Majesties on the big screen. I've seen a few of them on the big screen. Seen Goldfinger from Russia, one or two others, but I'd love to see Majesties on the big screen.
I've done it, man, and it's amazing. It's so good. But the thing is, and the reason why I have to go again is because I nipped to the loo before it started, and as I was having a wee, I heard the gun barrel music start, and I was like, oh, bollocks! So I missed the very beginning. So I have to go and see it again completely from start to finish.
Nice. So you're running back to your seat with your Dodger still out, having
exactly.
To zip
yeah, completely.
Pee flying everywhere over these people as you're going over the seats.
That was precisely what it was like. Yeah, completely.
Exactly.
But there we go. Nice. So you know what it's time for, don't you, Chris?
What is it time?
It's time for Bond trivia. Bond trivia. That was my pistol sound rather than an explosion this time.
Did it again. That was a good pistol. I like it. That's the gun barrel gunshot is sound, isn't it?
I suppose it is. Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Good
you
stuff.
Nailed it.
Thank
nailed
you.
It.
Thank you. I'm proud of myself. So, do you want to go first this week?
No, I think you should go first this week.
Is it another one of these super tricky, difficult ones?
No, my one is one question, and it's not super difficult this week. I've mixed it up a bit. So.
Oh, all right. My trivia question of the day is Lois Maxwell, who we all know as the original Miss Moneypenny, was originally offered the role of what other character in Doctor No?
Good question. Okay. Yeah, I like it. Well, we've got a bit of time to think about that one.
We do indeed.
So my trivia, this time it's not a speed trivia, it's not a double trivia, it's just normal trivia. My question is, aside from M, who is the only other character in the series to call Q by his name Major Boothroyd?
Ooh, that is a good question. It's one of those that it's tinkling around my mind somewhere, and I think it's going to appear to me at some point.
I think it will. Once that particular character comes in your head, you'll know it straight away.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. So we will reveal the answers to those questions at some point throughout today's episode. So we should crack on and talk about some villains, shouldn't we?
We should indeed. Yeah. Part 2 of the villains, and we're starting with Mr. Aristotle, if you want to go for the full name, Kristatos.
Absolutely.
Now, what do you think of this guy?
So these three, the next 3 movies, obviously we did Dr. No to Moonraker last time. These 3 movies are my weakest Bond kind of knowledge area.
But not for long, because we'll be reviewing them over the next few months.
Completely. So obviously, we're not allowed to watch any movies until we review them, so I haven't seen these in a fair bit of time. So, yes, Kristatos. Now, the interesting thing about him is he initially appears as if he's an ally, doesn't he? Rather than just the all-out villain. So I guess that's quite an interesting little twist. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're not going to talk about tiers and stuff yet, the 3-tiered system. But for me, this dude isn't the most memorable of villains, I don't think. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if it's because of the whole good guy, bad guy thing, but I agree with you. I think there isn't anything all that memorable about him. Physically, he looks kind of normal. In fact, in his earlier days, he was considered as a potential James Bond, wasn't he, Julian Glover? So, he didn't have that sort of distinguishing sort of feature. He didn't have the classic one-line dialogue, that special, I expect you to die, stuff like. He didn't have that. He didn't have sort of a specific. I know that film didn't have any gadgets in it anyway, but he didn't have anything. A vehicle or like a boat. Well, he had his boat, but something special.
Yeah, there's nothing really memorable about him, is there? There's no. I mean, it's like we said about Largo last time, in the sense that, like, I felt like Largo just needed that one scene, whether it was a torture scene or just that one line to make him just to take a step up to the next level. And I feel like Kristatos, like, the only scenes, for not having seen the film in a while, the only scenes that really stick in my memory is when he's sitting having dinner with Bond early on, and the kind of that's sort of it, really. Like, I can't, there's no scenes that really stick out to me for Kristatos.
No, I think with that scene it's quite good because you can see he's trying to manipulate Bond into believing that Columbo's a bad guy, not him. So that's kind of good. I think the bit where you see him being his most menacing, even though because he's not one that's very emotional, is he? You never see him get like so angry or whatever. He's kind of like quite calm for the majority of the film, which, unless you go super calm like Hugo Drax, you need to be at the extremes, don't you?
Yeah.
And he's kind of in the middle. I do like the scene, though, where Bond and Melina being keel-hauled across the coral reef with the sharks.
Yeah,
obviously, that's from Live and Let Die book. And you can see him in that scene, and he obviously wants Bond to get eaten by the sharks. And that bit I do like.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, at the end, when they're going up in the mountains in Greece and what have you, you've got I think the main thing is it's the whole him Columbo thing, isn't it? That's obviously the main part.
Yeah, I think he's got a memorable base. You got to give him that. Like,
I think brilliant.
Even the casual fan would recognise that. Yeah,
definitely.
And like you say, the keel hauling thing is great. That's a classic Fleming scene, and that's always good to see. But yeah, for whatever reason, I feel like he I don't know, he just needed something extra to make him more memorable, whether that was a scene, just even a line of dialogue, or whether that was just a slightly different look. Yeah. I don't know.
I think for what that film was trying to do, obviously from Moonraker, the massive fantasy in space, what For Your Eyes Only was trying to do was to bring it back down, wasn't it? Bring it back down to earth, make it as realistic as possible. And looking at it that way, Aris Kristatos is a very realistic villain. The way he's portrayed, he doesn't do anything that is so fantastical that it's a bit out there. He could have existed in real life, in a way. So for the film, I think he did that part well, because obviously he's trying to be realistic. His appearance wasn't all that memorable. I know we've mentioned he had the little goatee beard, which is the only sort of thing which I can sort of remember about him. Now, here's a big thing with the villains. Obviously, Goldfinger, you remember his plot straight away, don't you? Obviously, blow up Fort Knox, his gold goes much. Blofeld, it's in Thunderball, steal the Vulcan, 2 bombs, put everyone to ransom. Now, what did you think of the whole scheme in For Your Eyes Only with Kristatos' plan?
So let me see if I can remember it. So it's basically, you've got the ATAC, which is Advanced Targeting Attack Computer?
Automatic Targeting Attack Communicator.
I was nearly there. I had half of it right. So that's, they can trace the submarine.
Ejector sensors.
Well, there was the quote, the week out the window.
Oh, no. Sorry.
It's very good. Which tells you where all the submarines are. Is that right?
Basically, it's the Polaris fleet, and I think basically, it tells you where they are, or at least, no, I think it's slightly similar to the Spy Who Loved Me, because the Spy Who Loved Me has a tracking system which tells you where the submarines are. I think the ATAC system, you can launch missiles using that system.
That's it. Do you know what? I'm getting confused with Spy Who Loved Me is what I'm doing.
No, but they're very similar sort of thing, isn't it?
Submarines. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, like that doesn't really stick out, you know. Again, there's probably a load of listeners screaming into their earphones right now at me, but yeah, like I say, it's just, I don't know, just falls a little bit on the flat side for me.
Yeah, and I think also the villainy, especially in the early part of the film, is taken up by the henchman Hector Gonzalez initially, and then Emil Leopold Locke even more so. So they have like the screen time early on, and so Kristatos, although he's a goodie, you know, he doesn't get a lot of screen time initially.
I would dare say Locke is the most memorable villain in this film.
Maybe not as a name, but in terms of physically being a menace, I think he is definitely. So it's the sort of thing where with the film, I think, you know, the whole realistic side of things worked. I think, you know, the plot. Okay, so he wanted to get the ATAC. He only wanted it to sell it to the Russians, really. So it wasn't like he wanted to blow up the world or anything. His was purely about greed, was to steal it and sell it to the Russians, basically. So that's all he wanted, was just like money. He had that slight, I don't, what did you think about him with BB? You know, the ice skate. Do you ever think he ever was a bit sly with her, or do you think he was purely, you know, he wouldn't go there sort of thing?
Do you mean on a naughty, predatory sort of
was
sexual
he a pervy
level?
sort of uncle type person, or was he just? I know he wasn't her uncle, but you know, was he? What do you think? Or
I think perhaps not, because there's that line, isn't there, where she says to Bond, where she's trying to seduce Bond, and he's like, "Baby, put your clothes on," whatever he says, and she says something like that. He still thinks I'm a virgin, or something. She says that line, doesn't she?
True.
So I think that's probably just your dark and warped perverted mind, Chris.
I think it probably is. Cheers. Although, no, that is true. So what do you think about his sort of demise and the whole climax in Greece? What do you think about that?
Do you know what? Somewhat shamefully, I can't actually remember how Kristatos dies.
Well, it isn't Bond who kills him this time, and it isn't even Melina. Do you remember who kills him?
No.
It's Columbo. So when they're on, do you remember? So there's like Bond is battling. So Columbo is battling Kristatos. I think Bond is battling Kriegler at the time. Kriegler gets chucked off. Kristatos sort of overcomes Columbo initially and runs away. And then Columbo basically grabs him. And I think Kristatos, I think basically Kristatos slightly overcomes him, and he's about to get Bond. But then Melina's with Bond, and Bond basically says to Melina, no, Melina wants to shoot him with a crossbow, and Bond basically says, no, that's not the right way, let's turn him over to, services or whatever. And then at that point, Kristatos has a knife, and he's about to chuck it at Bond, but then Columbo sort of recovers and then chucks his knife at Kristatos, and it goes in his back, and then he goes down. Now, so that isn't a memorable death. Bond didn't kill him, so Bond didn't really get to do a one-liner. But also, I think they chose the wrong person to kill him, because although Columbo and Kristatos have been set up like that, as once we were like brothers, and obviously they're not, Melina's the one that should have killed him, because realistically, it was because of Kristatos that her parents died. She was out to get him. She wanted to kill him, like Greek women like Electra always avenge their loved ones. And yet she didn't get the chance to do that. So in a way, I know it might have been a bit too domino thunderball, but I still think she should have been the one to perhaps even save Columbo. I don't know.
Yeah, I think enough time had passed from Thunderbolt to knock that out. And as well, what's more memorable than that is the fact that she's got the crossbow thing, and that's exactly. you remember her as the crossbow girl, don't you? Do you know what I mean? It stands out. It's different. So that totally should have been the way he went, which is an unusual choice, but funny.
So overall, I think his villain worked well within Three Eyes Only for what they were trying to do. Yeah, but in the grand scheme of things, not, in my opinion, not very memorable. And as such, that's what you want, isn't it? You want a villain that's memorable.
Exactly.
And they're memorable because they've got a good scheme. They say that one line. They torture Bond. They're menaced. They're obsessed about something. All these things, but unfortunately, this guy just wasn't quite any of those for me. Anyway, I don't think he was.
No, I completely agree. I would say he's more memorable in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I'd say he's definitely more memorable in that. Yeah,
there we go.
And possibly Star Wars, although he's only in that for a second or two.
That's true.
But yeah.
So moving on, we've got a double barrel heading for Octopussy, and I know you're a big Octopussy fan. We've got Mr. Kamal Khan and General Orlov. So how do you feel about? Let's talk about Kamal Khan first.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about. There it is.
He's good. Good old Louis Jourdan. It's such a shame, not long ago, was it? But now. Yeah, this is an interesting one, isn't it? Because is this the first time we've got a double barrel sort of villains? I mean, I know in from Russia you kind of got Klebb and Grant, but Grant's more of a henchman. You could say Klebb and Kronstein or whatever, and you got Blofeld in the background. But in terms of the first big where one could easily be the main villain or the other, I think this is probably the first one. Obviously, Orlov dies prior to Kamal Khan, so Kamal Khan you'd say is probably the main villain, which is right, but Orlov definitely deserves a mention here as well.
Yeah.
Now, if we start with Kamal Khan, he again in terms. Okay, let's go back to that whole film poster thing. Kristatos, if he's not on the film poster, I don't think anyone would miss him.
No, he's not going on the poster. I don't think.
No.
Kristatos.
Now, Kamal Khan, I think possibly could, but if he did, he'd be like in a corner and a little image of him. He wouldn't be a big.
Do you know what? You know how we were saying with Scaramanga that he would go on the poster provided he had his golden gun in his hand.
Yeah.
If he didn't, then basically the idea is for anybody that missed the last episode, is that there's a hypothetical Bond villain poster that you would have all the classic villains on, and the average casual Bond fan in the street who goes to see all the films at the movies but wouldn't call themselves a hardcore fan or a geek like us lot, would they recognise that person? So, for example, if you had Scaramanga without his golden gun, would the average person recognise him? Probably not, I would say.
Yeah.
If he had his golden gun, then yes. I would say if you had Kamal Khan holding a Fabergé egg, then maybe you would recognise him. You would, or at least they would say that's the bloke from Octopussy.
Yeah, exactly. They might not know his name. Some names are easier to remember than others.
Yeah.
I think the double K helps a bit, but it's not hugely memorable in terms of the name. But I agree. Yeah. If he had the egg, you'd know he's from Octopussy. And in terms of his appearance, I like the way that he's kind of, he's got the slick hair. He's kind of smart. He's kind of aged handsome. You knew that when he was younger he would have been handsome, but he very much level with Roger Moore really in terms of age, in terms of we mentioned it before when we talked about Louis Jourdan, but the suave factor, they were almost trying to out suave each other and
having a smooth off.
Yeah, smooth off, exactly. Yeah. And he was always exquisitely dressed and very smart and classy. He was a classy villain. So in terms of the way that he looked, I always thought as well, because he's got quite a lot of wrinkles. He's quite tanned, and he does look quite serpentine in a way, almost kind of snake-like.
I know what you're saying, actually. Yeah, you're right.
Not necessarily in a scary way, but his it's almost leathered type wrinkled face does look a little bit like that. I don't know. That's kind of the hints that I get. Anyway, when I watch it.
Yeah.
So yeah, appearance-wise, I think he's sort of classy, so that's good. He's got something going for him. So what did you think about the scheme? I suppose we have to kind of bring Orlov in, so we might have to do it together rather than just do one and the other because they overlap, don't they?
In terms of how we've done this, remember as well, for anybody that didn't listen to the last episode, the henchmen aren't included in this, so people like Jaws and Oddjob, we're just talking about the main villain. So I suppose in that sense, Kamal Khan is the main villain because he's the final one to die at the end of the film, isn't he? With the whole plane and all that kind of stuff. So I guess Orlov would ultimately be a henchman to Kamal Khan, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose. But you could, for this one, we'll keep him as a villain as well because he is a bit crazy. Now, in terms of his appearance, he's pretty much in Russian army uniform, isn't he, the whole time? I don't think he's ever out of it, is he?
No. You never see him in jeans and t-shirt or anything.
No.
So I think he's a good one. Stephen Burkoff is a wicked actor, isn't he? He's like a really eccentric kind of character.
Yeah, completely.
And I think he's great. And I think he's memorable of the kind of Russian villains. Do you know what I mean? Because there's been a few over the years, and I think again, I would put him on the poster, but he would be somewhere in the corner next to Kamal Khan. The casual fan probably wouldn't know. They'd probably know Stephen Burkoff more than they would know him as General Orlov.
That's right. Yeah, no, completely agree. I think him and Irma are the two most well kind of recognised Russian people from it in terms of like army or whatever. But yeah, no, I totally agree. He'd be on the poster. You might not know him, but you'd know perhaps he's from Octopussy. But what I do like about him, he's got kind of like a little bump in the middle of his forehead, which it's a bit strange. Obviously, that's not been added. That is him, but it kind of adds to it. But he can look like a nutter, Stephen Burkoff. He can play a nutter well, you know. And obviously that's exactly what he does in Octopussy. So so in terms of looks, I think they're both good. So what do you think about the scheme then? Their sort of plot.
Now, again, I haven't seen this one in donkeys, so you're gonna have to brief me on the scheme on this one.
So this one, basically, they're working together along with Octopussy for some of it. So Octopussy is smuggling sort of jewelry on the train. Okay, now what Orlov and Kamal are planning is that they're creating exact replicas of the jewelry that's been stolen, and they were going to replace the replicas onto the train, then take the real stuff off to keep for themselves, but they were also going to put like a bomb on the train. Then the train was going to go to the US Air Force Base where the bomb was going to explode. And so everyone in the world would think that America's, you know, no missiles would have been launched into that area from another country. So everyone would have assumed it was like an American missile that had exploded accidentally in the base. Therefore, there'd be a call for a shutdown of all weaponry and armory, and they'd have to move out, which left the Russians able to like basically just conquer the West because there wouldn't be anyone to stand in their way.
So interesting. So obviously this is in the days of East Germany and West Germany with the Berlin Wall and all that kind of stuff. So it was the obviously the Allies or the West controlled West Germany and the communists had East Germany. So interesting. Okay, so that's a fairly decent plot, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I like it. I really like it because obviously you got the mad Russian general that just wants to basically take over everyone and conquer, and then Kamal's getting out of it. He's getting the jewelry. He's getting sort of he and Octopussy, they've obviously been in cahoots, but now he's sort of turning his back on her and putting her out to pasture sort of thing. And then he was just going to retire to India with all the sort of
with all of his gold and jewels.
So it's not like, although the bomb is kind of like a big thing, it's not like destroy the whole world, but it's kind of clever. It's political without being overly political. And it gives some really good sort of things for Bond to have to try and find and try and do and try and solve and try and stop. And I like this film quite a lot, and I like the plot quite a lot as well.
So in terms of how that plot is foiled, I would say Bond employs a range of interesting costumes from his lovely purple sort of shirted, waistcoated Mishka and Grishka knife throwing outfit. A lot of running about on trains. He dresses up as a gorilla at one point, Chris.
He does on the train, indeed.
And of course we have the clown suit.
We do,
at the end. So I've got to admit that especially that last one isn't really up my street as a Bond fan. I don't want to see Bond running around dressed up as a clown. There's that sort of scene, isn't there?
Daniel Craig does it in Spectre. We like it then.
I don't. I suppose it depends on the delivery. I suppose it depends how he carries himself in the clown suit, which would dictate my reaction. But yeah, I think like I don't know. There's that scene at the end, isn't it, where Bond comes in and he's trying to convince everybody that there's a bomb and all that kind of stuff, and everybody's just kind of laughing at him because he's a clown, and it's kind of like that's not a situation Bond should have. Do you know what I mean? Where he's in a sense he's like. He's the butt of the joke rather than the joke giver, you know?
Yeah, but there is a logic behind it, though, because if he didn't dress up as a clown, how was he going to get into the big top to stop the bomb?
That is true. You're right.
He had to dress up as something to get past the security guards because he was in his red shirt. I know I'm defending Octopussy here, but no, that, for me, I've got nothing against that particular scene. I know it's a bit weird. I like the fact that he put in all the face paint and everything. You know, the amount of time that he would have taken him to do it and everything. I know you're pushing a bit with that, pushing reality a bit. But how else was he going to get in there? You know, unless he dressed up, he wouldn't have been able. The security were looking for him. The police were looking for him. There's no way he would have got in there. Without dressing up. And obviously, if he hadn't got in there, the bomb would have exploded and Kamal and Orlov's plan would have gone through. So, although it is a bit of a weird thing, I also like the link between the fact that he dressed up as a clown and at the start of the film, 009 is dressed up as a clown. So you know that he's been involved. And I like that circle there. I like the fact that Bond's
the circle of life
sort of thing. Yeah, exactly, the circle of life. And it just brings that link. And then obviously when on the train, obviously a bit earlier, that is, with Miska and Griska, and he sort of said this is for 009, and then later he's dressed up as a clown. It's almost like there's his little link to his former buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if the Double O's hang out with each other out of office hours. Do you know what I mean? Whether they go down the pub or the gentleman's club or whatever, and the Double O's have a bit of chat about work. You know?
Yeah, I think. Or maybe not chat about work, just get shit-faced together.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
So in terms of how Khan and Orlov get kind of dispatched, I suppose I like the way Orlov, like that bit on the train track. I think that's quite memorable. That is a memorable death.
Yeah, definitely.
And it shows what a lunatic he is as well.
Yeah.
Like there he is running off down the tracks and getting shot in the back and all that kind of stuff. I think that's great. That does stick out as a death for me.
And he dies with a smile on his face. Tomorrow I'll be a hero of the Soviet Union. And like he's just been shot and he's about to die, but yet he still thinks the train, everything's going to be all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a great death, and that was just after follow that car. When Bond goes on the train tracks and he's trying to chase him. So no, I like that. I like that quite a lot. I think. What do you think about Kamal's demise?
Yeah, it's all right, isn't it? I mean, there's the whole fight on the plane. Go out and get him.
Yeah,
I love that bit. You don't imagine he would have that voice, do you? Out there, and all that. Yeah, I think that
Mr. Bond.
It's a plane crash, isn't it? So I suppose it's like all right.
No, that's the only thing. I think the bit with Gobindo is brilliant. Obviously, he gets hit off the plane. He goes back in. There's a little bit of a argy-bargy, and then Bond grabs Octopussy and they hop off.
I really hope you get to write a Bond script one day and it'll be like, Bond and villain have a bit of argy-bargy in brackets.
That'll be it. It'll be like, in Live Let Die, they just said the best boat chase ever. Yeah. And mine will be like that. Yeah, bit of argy-bargy.
Bit of argy-bargy.
Yeah, bunch of fives being thrown back and forth.
Bit of slap and tickle.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's a shame because, okay, he dies in a big explosion, a plane, but there's not that sort of payoff where, it's not original, really, isn't it? I mean, lots of people died sort of that way, and it's okay, but I would have preferred a more memorable death somehow.
I would agree
possible.
with that. It's always nice when they kind of like, when they're hoisted by their own petard at some point, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And there's like there's a kind of poetry to their death, which we don't get with Kamal Khan, sadly. No.
But kind of we do with Orlov in the way that he's trying to do his thing, and although he was only shot, the fact that he was trying to do what what's striding him was made that death more memorable. Whereas Khan's obviously, whether I don't know, just something that maybe Bond had the Fabergé egg and he shoved it in some sort of pipe. So I don't know, something along those lines.
That's the thing. I don't have a better option. I don't have something else. Like, it's nice to see Red Grant get strangled by his own watch thing.
Yeah,
by the garrote wire. It's good that
Odd job
with the hat. Yeah. Bond shooting Scaramanga with just the one shot. All those kinds of things are great. But we didn't really get that with Kamal Khan. But I don't. Maybe some sort of elephant related death. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe.
But there we go. So Kamal Khan and General
Sat
Orr.
on by an elephant.
There we go. That would have been the way to go, definitely. So moving on to, in fact, actually, it'll be interesting to see when it, in the sense that in all of those 80s action movies, the Russians were the bad guys, weren't they? You know, whether it was Rambo or Bond, it was always the Russians. So now old Putin's playing up again and kind of, you know, jostling and flexing his muscles.
Interesting point.
It's gonna be interesting to see, you know, the next crop of Bond villains, whether it's going to go back to that or kind of or what's going to happen on that front. No. But interesting. Yeah. So next up we've got
That's amazing. We're throwing out all these quotes, man. We've got to keep saving them for later.
We do.
But yeah. So obviously this one is A View to a Kill with Max Zorin, some people's favourite Bond villain. I don't think there's anyone that says he's a crap villain, because I think Christopher Walken's brilliant in it. He is a brilliant nutter again. But he's not like, he can just turn it. He's the one that he doesn't have to be a nutter all the time. He's not, you know, he can turn, and I love that about Walken. I think he's
got that look in his eye, hasn't he? And I think when I listened to the interviews with Christoph Waltz at the Pinewood event, there's like a way he speaks that reminds me of Christopher Walken. It's like that sort of weird sort of sound to his voice as he talks. Like it's that same sort of thing. Thanks, man. It's like there's that. I don't know what it is, but it's just like a weird sort of eccentric way of speaking. And Christopher Walken definitely has that. So yeah, I love him. I hope you know Christoph kind of pulls off something good.
He will. He will, without a doubt. He will. Yeah, but both of those people you just wouldn't want to be in a room with, because if they turned, you would want to be the one that they turned on.
Exactly. Yeah, and you know they can both do that weird little thing where they can be totally calm at one point and completely in a rage in the next point. So I think Zorin's a great example of that. So the story of Zorin, isn't it? Wasn't he like artificially created in a lab or something like that?
That's
what was
right.
the deal with Zorin?
It was a Nazi concentration camp. So the women in the concentration camps, they were experimented on by Dr. Karl Mortner, who's the guy with the monocle, and basically he was testing them. And apparently, during childbirth, loads of the babies and the mothers died. Only a few survived, but the few who did ended up with severe side effects, and one of those was being psychotic, which obviously Zorin, apparently they created supreme intelligence and perhaps strength as well, but the side effect was they were psychotic. So Zorin sort of amplifies that sort of perfectly, really, doesn't he?
Absolutely.
I think. What do you think of the way he looks? I mean, obviously his hair is quite a standout thing, isn't it? Yeah. Like it's just kind of. Yeah.
Well, I suppose we got to mention that originally David Bowie was kind of courted to be Max Zorin, wasn't he? Which I
hope he
can
sings
totally
a song
see
at some
that.
point.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I thought you meant in the song, just burst out into song in the film. Oh, it's a view to a kill. So I could totally see Bowie being Max Zorin, like especially in that period. He had that same sort of look, didn't he? With the blonde sort of slick back hair and all that kind of stuff. I suppose it's the 80s, isn't it? And he's got what I call pedo glasses. You know, those kind of like rounded gold-rimmed pedo glasses.
Do you have a pair yourself, or?
I don't, but like every man in that period wore those. Like it was just what you had, and he wears them quite well, I would say. I mean, I suppose he isn't like, he doesn't have a thing about his appearance, but it's Christopher Walken, and he just looks a bit crazy, so it kind of works on some level.
It does, completely. I mean, again, he's classy as well, isn't he? Always dresses quite smart. You know, he's a wealthy. A millionaire industrialist, whatever it is. But he's got a good backstory, because not only do we know about the concentration camps, but we know he can speak, a dozen languages, no accent, or is it half a dozen languages? I don't know. But he can speak a lot of languages, no accent. You know, he used to work for the KGB, didn't he, as well? Nobody ever leaves the KGB. But obviously he did, and he went sort of he went solo and set up Zorin Industries, and I love it when you've got like Auric Goldfinger and Auric Enterprises and like Dominic Green Planet is another one, but Max Zorin and Zorin Industries. I just love that whole villain name sort of connection to some sort of company or organization or something like that, and it just adds to it. And then obviously it was his intelligence No, did they create the microchip or did they steal the microchip? No, I think they did create it, didn't they? Yeah. Because was it 003 or 004? I think it was 003's body in Siberia. I think so. He had that little microchip in his necklace, and then Bond recovered it, and they matched it up to the one that was manufactured by Zorin Industries. So this microchip is impervious to sort of blasts of, is it magnetic?
Do you know what? Again, it's been donkeys since I've seen this film. So apologies to the listeners. They're probably all going, how dare you even make a James Bond podcast when you're that unfamiliar with the last 3 Roger Moore films? I apologise. We'll watch them soon enough and it'll be all right. But I can't remember the details. Is it something to do with like the whole electromagnetic pulse thing like in GoldenEye?
Yeah, it's very similar to that. I think basically anything with that, it will go. And if there's basically their thing is if there was like a blast, then everything could be put out, but these microchips were impervious to it. Zorin's been manufacturing them, and there's been a leak in the company, so that's why they investigate initially. Obviously, then we find out that Zorin's plan is tenfold that in terms of so he wants to corner. It's very much the plot of A View to a Kill is very similar to Goldfinger in terms of you've got a guy who obviously Goldfinger's is gold and Fort Knox. Destroy Fort Knox for his gold. Zorin he manufactures microchips, destroys Silicon Valley. He gets the overall monopoly, shall we say, over the market. So there is quite a lot of similarity between those two stories. And so Zorin's main thing is he's a microchip manufacturer. He's bringing in these people with a lot of experience and knowledge about it all, and basically his plan is to destroy Silicon Valley, flood the market, leaving him in control. So again, it is greed, it's making him in control to get money, and it's destroying a lot of people in the process.
Well, what we also must consider as well is this was 1985, so the whole microchip computer industry was sort of still in its infancy. Definitely. And this would have been absolutely cutting edge, as ridiculous as that might seem to today with where computers are. So the whole microchip thing would have been like the latest kind of stuff. Yeah. So a good point about the whole kind of Goldfinger parallel there. It's kind of like an updated Goldfinger, isn't it? Really, in the sense it's of what he's doing instead of gold. It's the gold of its time, which is the microchip, I suppose. Yeah. So I think people. I don't know whether it's because it's Christopher Walken and Oscar-winning kind of actor and all that kind of stuff, but people remember Max Zorin, don't they? Like they remember him, and that blimp that he's got, the Zeppelin, is quite memorable, brilliant. Isn't it? That's something that sticks in a lot of people's minds, and I feel like you would have the blimp on the villain's poster. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so.
Like I mean.
You'd know that straight away if you saw it. You would recognise it. Zorin, without a doubt, would be on the villain's poster. Without a doubt, he is extremely memorable. I think you've got to put that down to Christopher Walken just being brilliant, basically as a bit of a nutter. Like the bit where they're in the main strike valley, and like just before the bomb goes off, he just starts machine gunning all of these guys that have been helping him. He's just and then he's sort of laughing while he's doing it. It's like. Yeah. That is
proper
psycho.
nutter.
Yeah, proper nutter, as we like to say. But I think he's fantastic, and the air blimp, like you said, like he's got two, hasn't he? So he's got the big one where he has his business meeting earlier, and does anyone else want to drop out?
Yeah.
After the guy goes down.
I mean, that is the Goldfinger scene, isn't it? Recycled.
Exactly. It is Solo when he leaves the gangsters, and it is exactly the same. Exactly, another point there, and then he's got his own little smaller blimp where him and Carl Mortner and Scarpine go in at the end when they sort of see Mayday come out of the mine and stuff like that. So I think that's nice because it's a vehicle that you remember associated with him. You remember him because he's a nutter. I think obviously Mayday we've got to mention. I know she's not sort of classed as a main villain, but those two are such a good pair. They're probably the best pairing since Oddjob and Goldfinger, I would say.
Yeah, you're right.
and they are brilliant, and that's memorable. And you've got a lot. The other thing with Zorin is he like there's lots of ways that he nearly kills Bond. Like you've got the Rolls Royce when they push it into the lake, and obviously Mayday does it in the car wash, or at least kills the other guy in the car wash.
I think about that every time I go through a car wash.
Yeah,
every time I look in the back seat in case Mayday's in there.
Yeah. And the other thing that I love about Max Zorin is when he and Bond are like conversing at the party, for instance, they both know that he knows that he's like an arch villain sort of thing. Zorin knows that Bond's out to get him. Bond starts saying this thing about fly casting, and straight away Zorin knows it.
Yeah.
And like they're almost, with that, it's kind of pushing the envelope
Bond thing,
back.
isn't it?
It is, isn't it? And I love it.
He does that all the time, like way back to Thunderball, where he says, a Spectre defeat at your shoulder and all that. He just marches up to the villain and just drops those little hints that he knows exactly what he's up to.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. Now, also the other Goldfinger kind of parallel is the whole Mayday changing at the end and saving the day. So it's like Pussy Galore changes the gas over, as does Mayday sort of takes the bomb out to stop it from blowing up.
Yeah.
It's I mean, there's a. Do you know what? I mean, I haven't watched this movie in a long time, but the more we talk about it and the more I think about it, the more I'm like, damn, man, this is like a really memorable film.
Yeah.
And all everybody ever seems to talk about is how old Roger Moore is in it.
Yeah.
And I suppose that must be said because, like, for example, he was 58 in A View to a Kill.
Yeah.
And I look at my dad now, who's like 65, and if I think, looking at my dad 7 years ago, suiting up and playing James Bond is just the most ridiculous thought on the planet.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is that. But man, I think it's again, I haven't seen it for a while, but I'm excited to review this one because I think it's going to be one of those that I see with fresh eyes. And because you got to look at that climax, the Zeppelin on the Golden Gate Bridge, man. That is a really memorable climax as well, isn't it? It really is.
Definitely. There's only one little bit of that film that I'm not too keen on, but I'll leave that until we review it. But I think it gets far too much slack, A View to a Kill. And I think even although saying that, even the people that don't like it, they do sort of say that Zorin's good. I haven't heard anyone say that he's a bad villain, like a poor villain, because he's not. He's just awesome, isn't he? So what about his demise then? So
you remember it, don't you? Like he's sort of giggling to himself as he falls off the Golden Gate Bridge, and I mean it's I mean that's a memorable death, and they say hitting the water from that height is like falling on concrete. Because of the speed that you build up, and like I remember seeing a really sad documentary about apparently loads of people jump off that bridge every year to commit suicide and
crazy,
stuff. And it's like it snaps your neck as soon as you hit the water. So it's definitely a kind of memorable way to go, like a good ending for a good villain, I think. And
like you said, I think the chuckling is almost him laughing at the fact that Bond's actually best him when all along the secret improvisation of genius. He thought he was going to, easily. He was one step of Bond the whole way. He thought, Bond was never going to get him, and then he's almost laughing at the fact that he's about to die. And you can't get more sort of a nutter than that, can you? Laughing when you know that you've been beaten and you're about to die. So great battle as well with Bond on the actual Golden Gate Bridge. with the axe and stuff like that. Just so many good scenes as well. So many good scenes. Sorry, every time he's on the screen, it is a joy to watch. You miss him when he's not there, basically, and that's great. So,
definitely,
big
cool stuff. Big up to Zorin. Good old Christopher. So moving on. Next up, we've got the Living Daylights, obviously, and we've got another double header of villains. We've got Georgi Koskov and Brad Whitaker. Now, this one for me is an interesting one, not in the least because I met good old Georgi Koskov last year at the Bond event at Pinewood. Good fella, really, really nice guy. I think Georgi is brilliant. I love him. Like, as a character, I think he's great. Again, he's one of those who pretends to be an ally at the beginning, then switches back, double crossing. I think in terms of, again, because this is a very down-to-earth Bond film, isn't it? I think in terms of his look, he doesn't have anything that makes him stick out. Personally, I would want him on the poster. but I don't know whether the casual fan would recognise him. Do you know what I mean? How do you feel about that side of things?
Well, I think I really love his sort of, he brings a lot of charm and a lot of energy into his role, I think. And like you, I really like it. I think it brings a life. He's always sort of doing something on the screen. So I like him as a villain, even though he's not like a vicious villain. He's not like menacing, really. He's not like going to blow up the world. So he is quite soft as a villain, but he's also likable as a villain.
Yeah, do you know, it's a funny one, isn't it? 'Cause he's what I would call like a lovable rogue type of villain. Like he's a cheeky villain, isn't he? Like you think of that scene where, you know, Bond brings him the picnic and he's like, thank you, oh, and all that kind of stuff. And all that, and he's quite a cowardly villain as well, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
He would run from trouble rather than sort of getting up in the thick of it. But I think that's what it is. He's a really likable character, even though he's a villain. You know, a bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? Devious. That's the word.
That's a very good one.
Yeah. But so I like him a lot. Would you say he's a classic Bond villain? I don't think the casual fan would perhaps recognise him.
No.
I don't know. What do you think?
And in terms of appearance, he hasn't got that one. Obviously, we mentioned he hasn't got sort of a physical disfigurement or anything like that. And aside from like the last bit of the film, you see him in his Russian uniform. Prior to that, he's dressed in a few different things, isn't he? You know, nothing all that sort of memorable. I think the only thing about him is his real slick back hair. He's got that sort of thinning dark hair, and he sort of slicks that back quite a lot.
Yeah.
But so I don't think, as a general Bond fan, I don't think people would know who he is. They might recognise him from the Living Daylights, but they definitely wouldn't know his name.
Do you know what? I feel like if he was on the poster next to the pig, then they might recognise him.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So that's kind of Koskov. Now, obviously, we've got to talk about Whittaker as well.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Bradley?
Well, he's another one which really he's quite soft as well in a way. Like, I know we mentioned it with a Henchman podcast, but Necros is pretty much the main menace in that film. He is the evilness in that film, isn't he? And he does
People
it brilliantly.
remember the milkman. They always remember the milkman.
He's brilliant. Now, so that leaves with two sort of main villains who are both quite soft in terms of, you know, the way they are. I think with Whittaker, you know, he has got that interesting side to him. He's got that fascination with war. You know, he's got all these war memorabilia toys. He's got model works of all the villains with his face on them, hasn't he? Like Napoleon and Genghis Khan and all that sort of stuff, and Hitler and everything like that. And so he's got that, because I've mentioned it before with Goldfinger. I like villains that are obsessed with something. So he has that obsessiveness, and his obsession is obviously war and everything around that. But alongside that, he's also got these fantastical weapons. Obviously, he's an arms dealer, so he's got all this high-tech gear, like, you know, top of the range sort of new stuff, which is interesting as well. He does seem a little bit like, I don't know, he's just not a heavy-weight villain, is he? That's the thing.
Do you know what? I think he's too sort of like he's a bit too sort of jokey and light-hearted. Do you know what I mean? Like, in the sense that he never really does anything that makes me think he's ruthless.
No.
You know, he's sort of making sort of silly jokes, and kind of he chuckles a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like a friendly villain. I feel like if he'd have been played as more of a kind of like, you know, almost like more like a Necros type character who was really sort of stone faced and hard edged, that could have given him a little bit more. But I don't know. Maybe that was an angle they played because it was a much more down to earth and we had a much more serious Bond. Maybe that was where they were getting the kind of light-hearted bit in. I don't know.
It would have been interesting to see, because obviously both of them are light-hearted, Koskov and Whittaker. If one or the other had been a bit harder edged, how that would have played out, whether that would have made it better or not. And I'm not sure. But it would be interesting to see that. But I think if you did change one of them, I think it would be the Brad Whittaker one.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, if you kept Haroun Krabbe as Koskov, he has to play it that way, I think.
Yeah. I think Koskov is bang on. I like that. I suppose, I mean, you do get the hard-edged meanness from Nikros, so that's definitely there.
Oh,
I feel like as the main villain, like he's I don't know, like even that bit with the final showdown, the gunfight between him and Bond, it's like
it's not scary, is it? It's not
scary, and he's sort of like giggling as he's shooting, and like why that works for Max Zorin, I feel like Whittaker doesn't ever really feel like that much of a threat.
No,
I think.
No, it's more interesting to watch rather than sort of tense or whatever, isn't it? So no, I agree, and he does a lot of sort of sitting around and eating lobster and telling people to do this and do that. But what did you think of the actual plot then?
So let me get this right, because I've often thought that Living Daylights is one of those where the plot's sort of quite complicated compared to the other ones. Yeah. In the sense that, you know, you look at Goldfinger and it's like, you know, bank robbery, but with a slight twist. You know, Dr. No, you know, it's toppling rockets, playing two countries off against each other. Yeah. Living Daylights, you've got the dude, Koskov, defecting to the west. Then he escapes back to the east again.
So it's a fake detection.
Fake defection. Yeah. Then he goes back to the east. Then there's the whole thing of the Mujahideen with the opium smuggling. Yeah. And then, so it basically just boils down to a drug deal, doesn't it? Ultimately,
well, drug deal, and it's making money because if you look at the plot, okay, so you've got a fake defection with a fake assassination attempt. You've got like a fake ambulance that goes to pick him up. Basically, there's so much sort of double sort of crossing and fakeness in this. You've got the fake heart in the fake ambulance later on going into the plane and all this. Basically, I think ultimately, so you've got Koskov and Whittaker are working together. Okay, so Koskov, he's basically Whittaker's doing the arms deal. So what they're going to do is they're going to give the opium they're buying the opium from the Leopard Brotherhood,
Snow Leopard Brotherhood,
and then they're going to sell that opium in to make money, and they're going to buy arms as well, aren't they? And then they can. Oh wait, what is it? Well,
it's tough, isn't it? Like when I actually try and pin down exactly what their motivation is, I'm like, what is it they're doing again? I remember there's drugs involved.
Oh no, that's it. No, the diamonds, isn't it? So you're going to use the diamonds as a down payment, and then sell the dope, get lots of money, and also buy the weapons, sell the weapons back, and make even more money.
So explain to me, why did he need to defect and do the fake assassination attempt at the beginning?
Because he wanted Pushkin dead, I think. That was because he wanted Bond to assassinate General Pushkin, because Pushkin was finding out about Koskov and their idea, wasn't he? So he wanted Pushkin out of the way, so he pretended to defect. And then he even said he wanted Bond to be the one to sort of, take care of Pushkin sort of thing. There you go. So to get him out of the way. But it is a complicated one, that one. But I don't think, I still think it's an interesting one. Like, for me, I prefer the plot of that, for instance, to perhaps, say, For Your Eyes Only, in terms of there is a lot going on. It is a little bit sort of complex, but I still like, I find it quite a good film to watch. I know we're kind of straying away from the villains here, but
I think it's a great movie. I love it, and I think Koskov and Whittaker, Koskov especially, is memorable. But in terms of the scheme, I feel like it is just, there's a lot of little sort of hinges that one can easily lose track of. And I always remember, and I think this has followed me into adulthood, being a kid and just not quite being able to follow the plot to this one, because there's a lot going on, a lot of double crossing and a lot of left and rights going on. So, so in terms of kind of like the kind of the end of these kind of characters and how they're kind of foiled, there's that kind of, you got the straight out gun battle with Whittaker, but Koskov survives, doesn't he?
He does indeed, yeah. So basically, so you see Bond sort of sneak into Whittaker's compound, as it were. They have their little gunfight with Bond with his Walther, and then Whittaker's got that sort of bulletproof shield gun, hasn't he? And so that's quite a good little battle. And then Bond goes behind Wellington and sets his little Phillips keyring to knock into Whittaker. So that's how he sort of dies. He met his Waterloo and all that. And then obviously Koskov comes in, and then Pushkin comes in, and then send him back to Moscow. Oh, thank you, General, thank you, in a diplomatic pouch. And then
Dude,
he, like, takes it.
that was a brilliant Koskov impression.
Was it?
I'm really excited about that. That was good.
Oh, well, we've got to save these, haven't we?
Yeah,
But
we've wasted
yeah,
a lot of quotes in this episode.
we have. We're gonna have to cut and paste them into a later one, maybe. So it is interesting because obviously Koskov survived. Whittaker obviously didn't. He was knocked out under that bust of Wellington. But I think the way that Whittaker died was good in the terms of, he was set in his army compound. He died from a bust of Wellington sort of thing. So that kind of linked into him, all right. And Koskov, he's been quite light-hearted, but in a way you don't mind him not dying, do you? Because he, like you said, he's kind of almost likable. And obviously Necros dies in the film as a henchman, so it's not too bad. So, yeah, so overall, what did you think of them both?
So, love Koskov. Not really bothered about Whittaker, though. Whittaker's death is kind of nice in the sense that it's a little bit different, isn't it? It's like the keyring gadget is what gets him.
Yeah.
Bond sort of outgunned with in terms of the firepower and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a nice way to go, rather than just being shot or thrown out of a window or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, pretty much the same actually. Yeah, I do like Koskov. I think it would have been interesting if one had been a bit harder than the other. But it's the way it is now. And yeah, no, I think they're both. If you had a poster, you'd probably put them both next to each other on the poster. Yeah. I'd imagine.
And Koskov, Whittaker would have that gun with the shield.
Yeah, he definitely would. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. And he's got his beret sort of in the shoulder strap, hasn't he, of his army uniform or whatever. Yeah. So I think so. But yeah, so overall, I think not bad, and an interesting take on it. I think as well. It's not your normal megalomaniac or your drug lord.
Absolutely,
like it's a little bit different.
Now, speaking of drug lords, Chris.
Well, hey, did you get my little input there?
I did. It was nice. Speaking of drug lords, that links us in to our next villain, which is Mr. Franz Sanchez.
Yeah. Although they were kind of drug lords, weren't they, with the opium? But anyway, let's give over
that. The thing with Franz Sanchez is, when I was a small boy, License to Kill was a 15 certificate in the UK, which means I was too young to go and see it. Yeah, so when it finally came to home video, which in those days was like maybe a year, maybe even 2 years before it came out on video, and I finally got to see it, it was like I felt naughty because I would have been like, 1989, I would have been like 7. So I probably
saw it at 7?
Well, no, it would have come out when I was 7.
Oh, right.
So
how old would you have been?
When I finally got to see it on video, I'd have probably been like 8 or 9, something like that.
That's still quite young for that film.
Yeah,
really
totally
young for that film. Whoa.
So, and knowing how kind of hard-edged that movie is compared to all the others, like I felt like, when you were young and you saw like 18 certificate movies and you felt grown up watching those, that's how I felt about watching License to Kill. And I remember thinking that Sanchez was my favourite villain when I was a kid, simply because he was just so nasty. And I suppose it made me feel more grown up amongst everybody else that, that was the case. But I really like Sanchez, man. I think he's great. In terms of like his appearance, I think just Robert. Do you know what? I think you pronounce his name Robert Davey, even though everybody says Davey. I think I've heard him say Robert Davey, but whatever. In any case, just he's got such a kind of like an unusual look to him, like a deadly kind of mean look that he kind of doesn't need anything. I don't think. If you're going to stick him on the poster, you'd probably have the iguana on his shoulder. Yeah. And that would, without a doubt. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think he's great. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm on the same. I'm a huge fan actually of Franz Sanchez. I think he's a brilliant villain. I think he's one of my favourites. I think particularly in the sort of modern era, he's one of my favourites. I think the way he dresses is super classy. I can remember that sort of dark blue, light blue striped shirt with a little batwing collar, tiny little collar on it. I think definitely if he's on the poster, you have him with the iguana, without a doubt. I like the way that his face is it's a bit pitted, isn't it? It's like kind of like as if he had really bad acne when he was young, and it's still sort of with him now. But that adds to him is, look, he hasn't got that one sort of physical disfigurement, but I think he has got a look. He's got a memorable look, hasn't he? And I think Robert Davi, I thought he was brilliant in it. I thought he portrayed him great. And I've always been a big fan of Sanchez, and he is completely ruthless. We were saying about one or two of the others who, you couldn't remember them being ruthless. This guy would do anything to anyone that he thought wasn't being loyal or double-crossed him.
Completely. That the scene that always sticks out in my head is the there's several, but like the one that always kind of strikes me is that like whip thing he's got on the end of his gun and he's whipping the bird at the beginning. Like that to me is like, that just sets the scene for what a nasty bastard he is, because he's like, a man inflicting violence on a woman, which is always a bad thing, but in such a nasty, mean way. It like sets the tone for the rest of the film about what he is,
and that's his mistress as well. And then he orders Dario and the others to like basically cut out the guy's heart, doesn't he? Yeah. So you straight away, it tells you so much about his character that A, he's ruthless, B, you don't want to double cross this guy. He obviously loyalty. Obviously, we find that out later even more so, but loyalty is something to him. And if this girl has run away from him, that she's not happy, and there must be a reason. And obviously, you can imagine once you're in his circle, you're never going to leave. Only one way out, and that's you get killed, basically.
Yeah.
So So I think he looks great. I think what I love about him as well is he's obviously a billionaire. He's incredibly rich. He's incredibly powerful. There's no one that would kind of touch him. He's kind of, I think, partially based on maybe Pablo Escobar. Mm-hmm. The drug lord that's above all drug lords. There won't be anyone that's. He is the top of the food chain when it comes to that sort of thing. And he's obviously successful already, and he just wants to expand on that. He's, I guess, within the scheme of things, he's basically the biggest drug lord there is, but he wants to bring in sort of the Pacific Ocean, the other side of the Pacific Ocean, the Asian side, to be, to join as one, so he can have even more control and even more power and even more money and so on and so forth. But I think he's great, yeah.
I think he's a good villain as well. I think one of his other memorable scenes is when is with the I forget what you call it now, but like that little chamber thing on the boat.
Yeah, the decompression chamber.
That's it. Yeah. That thing I remember. Milton Crest. Yeah, I remember the that scene where obviously like his head like goes like explodes against the thing. I remember I'd always have to watch that through my fingers when I was a kid because it used to freak me out. But yeah, that's another great memorable scene that I think sticks out.
It's great, and I love the bit just after that where the guy's like, "What about the money, patron?" And he just goes, "Laundry it," and he's just like completely cool. But it's he can even make a jokey comment about something like that. It's a bit like Bond in a way. Bond has a one line payoffs. And Sanchez has that in certain things. In fact, he does, because later on in the film, when Truman Lodge is like, "Oh, well done, Franz," and then Franz is like, "Oh, it's time to start cutting overheads," and just like shoots him, doesn't he? So he's got his own character. He's got his own one-liners. He's a businessman. He's brilliant.
I'll tell you who bugs the shit out of me, and that is Truman Lodge. He just annoys me. He's one of those characters that you just won't want around you. He's just irritating. What do you think?
He is, isn't he? He's flicking that little ball between his fingers, going, "They went for it. They went for the money." Yeah, you are happy when he shoots him, aren't you?
Yeah,
so,
and especially with a name like Truman Lodge, he deserves a punch in the face, doesn't he? With a name like that. But there we go.
He does.
So and as well, I like the fact that like the pain that Sanchez inflicts gets to a personal level, which is obviously
Yeah.
like the driving force behind most of the movie. But you know, he takes out Felix's missus.
Yeah.
There's that whole angle, and then they do the classic "Live and Let Die" scene from the book with Felix being fed to the sharks and all that kind of stuff. That's great. I mean, I might even go out on a limb and say that Sanchez could quite possibly be the most deadly Bond villain out of the lot of them, or the most ruthless at the.
I know, definitely. I'd 100% agree. Yeah, no, for those factors, and I love the fact as well. What makes him this rounded character is he's got this warped sense of loyalty. You know, which in itself is a good thing because everyone in everyday life rewards people that are loyal, aren't they? And it's almost like a family and stuff like that. But it's, so he has got kind of like a positive side to his character. I know he misuses it in a way in terms of, because he's a drug lord, but he's got that sort of side to him. So that's really good. And obviously it's kind of like Bond sees that as a weakness, and that's how he infiltrates his organization, doesn't he? Because Bond then makes Sanchez believe that he's obviously he's there to help him, and that's how he gets in. And it isn't Bond. Normally, if Bond's on the mission, he goes there and he's the one that's taking out the villains left, right, and center. But now he's making the main villain take out his own guys by using that loyalty that he sort of demands so much against him, by making him suspicious of all these people, and then he like Milton Crest and all the others, and it's just a really good sort of idea and setup. And I think that whole idea was based on a Japanese film from a while ago, from a long time ago, where the villain is taken down from within, as it were. But I think it's done really, really well in License to Kill.
Very nice.
So,
and I feel like in terms of the way Sanchez is dispatched at the end, if you wanted a poetic ending, I don't think you get any more poetic than that, do you?
No.
There he is, covered in petrol and then lit on fire by the very lighter that Felix lighter gave Bond as a wedding gift. Isn't that incredible? Yeah,
I think it's great. And that whole... Well, not only that, he's got a brilliant... I like that base, the Olympotech base, with the monastery and all that. The clever idea where they're using Professor Joe Butcher as the TV evangelist almost to try and to tell people the price of the drugs. That's clever. Yeah. Then you've got probably one of my favourite bits, climatic bits in the series, is the tanker chase. I love the tanker chase. And when you've got him and Bond fighting it over this tanker, obviously they're covered in petrol, then the tanker rolls over. And then, like you said, that scene with the lighter, and just before that, Sanchez has got like this machete against Bond's face, and like, well, how the hell is Bond going to get out of this now? And the way he dies in a massive ball of flames, I think it's brilliant. Yeah, superb.
That's good stuff. Excellent work.
He's 100%. He's on the poster, 100%.
Yeah, iguana
Definitely.
on his shoulder.
Yeah, gotta be.
There you go. Be. Good
Brilliant.
stuff.
Well done, Franz. Well done, Franz.
We've got a rest of 6 years. The tail end of the 80s, moving into the early 90s, and we're entering into the Brosnan period now, with Alec Trevelyan in GoldenEye. Now, this, I think, might divide a few people on their thoughts on this dude. What are your thoughts?
I like the fact. What I do like about him is the fact that it's a 00, it's an MI6 sort of villain, which is brilliant. The fact that he and Bond have a past, obviously we see in the pre-title sequence a mission 9 years previously, as they stated. So Bond, and you could tell they were kind of good mates on that mission, weren't they? Or at least Bond assumed they were, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like the fact that as a 00, he's trained the same as Bond. He will know all the martial arts. He'll know the shooting skills. He'll have gone through the same training. So this guy will be able to handle himself against Bond. So I love that sort of side of things. And I think Sean Bean is brilliant in the role.
So I think with this one, it's like for the first time you get a true equal as the villain for Bond, in the sense that, okay, we had someone like Scaramanga before and all that kind of stuff, which I suppose is the closest for that kind of thing. But like previously, you've got your Blofelds, if it came to a hand-to-hand fight, Bond's going to win. You know what I mean?
Telly Savalas wasn't too bad though.
That's true. Telly would have held his own in a fist fight. Bond against Kamal Khan in a fist fight. Bond's going to come out on top. And all those kinds of things. Whereas, with Trevelyan, it's like some dude who's, like you say, gone through exactly the same training, has almost the same history. He's an elite 00 agent, so it's going to be a pretty even fight as it goes through. And I think I think that's really nice to see. And I think with the whole the history they have together is a nice touch, because we've never really had that before, have we? No. Every villain he faces off with is just somebody, with the exception of Blofeld after a few movies, every villain he's faced off against has been somebody who he's just, learned about or has come into Bond's life in some way, and then they face off. Whereas this one, they've got a real history together. They might have been at 007 00 school together. Do you know what I mean?
Joined on the same day, started at the same day. All right, Alec.
Yeah.
James.
All right, Alec. Yeah. How you doing? Yeah. And all that kind of stuff. So I think that's great. I suppose the kind of scarred face is sort of like we've been there and done that a little bit. Already, but at the same time, it does make sense with the story. So
it links in, doesn't it? Obviously,
so,
to what happened.
What else are you going to do? So there's that. Now, in terms of his scheme, we're in outer space territory with the GoldenEye satellite, which sends an EMP pulse, which can short out any electrical device that it kind of it's in range of, which is quite a modern kind of up-to-date techno thriller kind of thing, which makes a lot of sense.
Unless you're in a stealth helicopter, of course, a Tiger helicopter, I think the thing with the plot, there are parts I like about it, and there are parts that I'm not overly keen on. I think the whole idea of him wanting revenge against MI6 works. It's a bit like Silva, actually, wanting revenge against M. I think that's quite similar. I think the fact I do like the whole space thing, the satellites. For me, this is one of the better satellite films compared to perhaps Diamonds or Die Another Day. But anyway, and I like the idea of what it does with the EMP pulse. I do like the fact that basically he wants to break into the bank. It's a bit like that bit is a bit off. Oh yeah, I'm doing this because I'm just going to break into the bank, wire the money, and then set up the pulse. No one will know. And it's a little bit like, well, okay, I'm not overly keen on that. I'm not bad, but the thing I'm not sure about is the whole Lienz Cossacks thing, where his parents were sent back by the British and then murdered and all that. It seems that was almost tagged on at the end to this.
A little bit on the convoluted side. So the whole history with that is the Lienz Cossacks were double crossed by the British or something during, is it the Second World War?
Yes, yeah.
And so he had a hatred of the British government, and it was like a way to get them back. But I mean, that's a pretty long-term plan he's gone through by working for the British government as a 00 for years.
I know.
And then I don't know. Yeah, I know what you mean about it. Like, I suppose it gives his backstory a little bit of richness there and an extra level, but at the same time, it might be a little bit much. Yeah,
for me, I'd prefer it if they'd left that aside and just gone with him and the GoldenEye satellite and the greed and the breaking in and doing that. And for me, it didn't need anything beyond that. Yeah. So personally, I think it was a little bit one too many levels to it. For me, it was anyway. But in terms of the way that it was portrayed, I thought Sean Bean was spot on.
Yeah,
I thought it was really good. But yeah.
So I one of the things I'm a big GoldenEye fan, and I think one of the coolest thing is the kind of the climax fight on the kind of the radar thing.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
Like that fight they have is really brutal, man. Like they're going backwards and forwards, and they are really evenly matched. They really are. Like it's punch for punch all the way through that kind of sequence. I kind of like, and again, we've got another poetic death, haven't we? We've got Trevelyan hanging off the bottom by his boot, a little bit like Nikros on the back of the on the back of the plane. for England's James, no Alec for me, which some people might say is a little bit cheesy.
Yeah.
And I understand that, but I think it's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
No.
Yeah.
I think in terms of his death, it's pretty cool. Obviously, he drops, although he's still alive when and then obviously the satellite goes on him. So I think that's quite a cool death. I do like that. But the fight I think is great. And what I like about it as well is it's sort of outside the satellite, it's inside the satellite there. I like the bit where it's hard hitting. They get the chains, they're finding anything they can to fight each other. But if that fight was shot in Quantum of Solace, we would have seen like loads of quick cuts, like a little bit of this and that. But we actually get to see like medium and wide shots where they're actually fighting, and it's not all you just see a hand going, like a fist going in, and then a reaction, then a throat chop or whatever. We're actually seeing two, obviously they were stunt guys, but a really well choreographed fight. And it is hard hitting. You've got some knees being thrown in, some
There's
elbows,
that one bit,
some
isn't there, where he kind of swings down and just boots him in the face.
Yeah,
do you know that bit? That's a nice bit. I like that. Yeah,
and I really do like. That's probably maybe since from Russia, I don't know, but probably certainly one of the best fist fights since then, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the demise, I think, is a good payoff as well.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
overall,
he's dropped from a great height and crushed by his own kind of satellite thing, radar dish or whatever you'd call it.
Definitely be on the poster as well.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's up there. Cool. So moving on, next up, we've got Mr. Elliot Carver, the news mogul type guy. Yeah. Now, again, I think this is another one that's going to split decisions amongst people. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
It is an interesting one, isn't it? Because he's kind of a bit based on Rupert Murdoch. Mm-hmm. Physically, he wouldn't be a threat whatsoever with Bond. He's a little bit older, and so on and so forth.
Well, he does demonstrate some nifty ninja moves towards the end. I don't know if you've forgotten that, Chris.
I did indeed. I do apologise. He'd obviously kick Bond's ass with those. Yeah. But no, it's an interesting one because it's a tough, isn't it? Because I think for this villain, he's a technological megalomaniac, like a media mogul. He's very much into. It is kind of like modern technology. It's digital, isn't it, with the satellites and everything like that. And I think the way it's portrayed kind of suits the film, but I don't know. I don't know. It's some days I actually think, oh yeah, I quite like him, and then other days I think, oh, I'm really not sure about Elliot Carver.
Do you know what? Hard. It is a tough one. And I think the idea of him is great. Like, as a Bond villain, like this huge news PR kind of mogul dude who's like, because at the end of the day, like, the media is power, like it's a very, very powerful thing. So that makes a good recipe for a Bond villain, is somebody who has that power and can misuse it to warp their own headlines and warp world events and make things happen to their advantage. I think that's a great idea. Yeah. What I don't know what it is that kind of sort of falls flat, because he does have quite a unique look. The sort of the white hair with the glasses, the rimless glasses. Yeah. Definitely. He's got a bit of a classic Bond villain vibe. Does he wear a Nehru jacket, or is it just like
I think he does at one point. No, I think he does at one point. Yeah. So he's got a little bit of craziness to him as well.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like. Do you know what I feel like would have been nice? The whole Dr. Kaufman kind of chakra torture thing. Yeah. I almost feel like if Carver had something like that himself, like if they'd have just. You got rid of that character and had that as being if he'd have been, because they hinted at a couple of things. Do you remember when Bond breaks into his safe and opens it up and he's got like a couple of dirty old porno mags in there and stuff,
and a needle,
so I feel like if they'd have expanded on,
that's Henry Gupta's safe though, isn't it?
Is it Henry Gupta's safe?
Yeah, I think that's Henry Gupta's safe.
I stand corrected. But if Carver had some like weird perversion or like some nasty little thing that he did on the sly, that I think would have been the missing ingredient for me.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree. He's close to being there, isn't he? But he again, a bit like a Largo, perhaps. In this film, I think he works well, but he does need that one thing because there's not really. I mean, here now. this is an interesting thing. So for is it the first time, or one of the first times anyway, we've got a villain who's actually, well, obviously we've had people like Largo with mistresses that Bond goes after, but now we've got a villain whose wife Bond previously used to date, sort of thing. You know, Bond had a history with this guy's sort of wife. So you got the whole thing about, James, do you still sleep with a gun under your pillow? And like when he hears that, suddenly he's like, oh, right, I'm going to sort this guy out. So they've got that link, haven't they? That sort of, you know, he doesn't like Bond anyway, but now, Bond, you know, he's found out about Bond and his missus, so he's not happy at all. So he wants Bond out of the way. So that's kind of nice, I think. I think that definitely adds something to it. But yeah, I think he is a bit of a button pusher in terms of Stamper, go and do this, and so on. But I don't know. There is. I think I do agree. I think he's a pretty decent villain, but he just needs something. He's not very menacing. Obviously, he's quite light-hearted, isn't he? He's quite sort of a soft villain in that respect. So yeah, imagine if he had that chakra torture or something like that.
Do you know what I mean? I feel like he just needs that. Like he needs something that makes you really think, what a bastard. Like what a nasty piece of, like, you know, how Sanchez kind of has the whipping scene and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Like he doesn't, he's obviously a very powerful dude, but I feel like he just needed that kind of side to him that's hidden from the public that was just really nasty.
I think the trouble is his character always gets other characters to do his dirty work for him. He gets Stamper, he gets perhaps Gupta, he gets Dr. Kaufman, and you never see him get his hands dirty, do you?
Yeah, that's exactly it, I think. I think you could, even though I love Dr. Kaufman, I think he's a funny character and he's entertaining. Cool. I feel like you could have just absorbed that character into Carver himself and you wouldn't have really lost anything. No,
that's a really interesting point though, because I think that would have given that character so much more if he had something like that. Like that is definitely, I definitely agree that is something
because
that
is like
missing.
On the hypothetical poster, you would have had Elliot Carver newspaper in one hand, and like some nasty little implement of torture in his other hand. Do you know what I mean? That is
exactly what it would have been. Yeah, definitely. Oh, it's a shame. It's a missed opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is. It's when you see these little things and you just think how they would have been improved, and that's definitely one way that he would have been improved. But so what did you think of his plot then, of his scheme?
So it's your kind of typical kind of Spectre hobby, isn't it? It's kind of trying to incite World War III between the Chinese and the West.
And the British this time.
And the British. And it's, you know, I think, like obviously the kind of the thing we see at the beginning with the undersea drill and the ship drifting into international waters and all that, into Chinese waters and all that kind of stuff. I think it works. It's like it's the Spectre plot, isn't it? Kind of done again in a slightly different way. But I like it. It's a solid thing. And at the end of the day, in real life, war and negativity sells newspapers. So you know that is what. You know, that is quite a true to life thing in a sense.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, I think, like you said, the ideas are there. I think even the whole thing on Tomorrow Never Dies was based on satellites and the new weapons, words of the new artillery. And just that thing was enough for Eon to say, right, go write it or something along those lines. And I think that side of things works really well. I think it's when you get to the almost like the close, the one-on-one, the face to face is where it doesn't quite work for me. Like everything that's around Carver's plot seems to make sense and be quite good and original, but it's when he and Bond are face to face is where for me I don't think the strings aren't quite being pulled enough, you know.
Yeah, it's speaking of kind of like the climax on the stealth boat. I think the stealth boat is one of those things that perhaps should have been more memorable than it was.
Yeah, it's
Do
you mean interior or exterior or both?
Just sort of. I don't know. Again, I don't have a solution. I don't have this would be better if they'd have done this. But like. You know, the idea of a stealth boat is a good idea. Like that's memorable, definitely. That sticks out. Yeah. That's great. But in terms of sort of how it was actually used, I don't think it was that much of a feature that you really remember it. You know, it works with the plot. You know, it keeps them off radar so they can do all the manipulations and stuff. But it's sort of not. Maybe it needed a more memorable design. Maybe that was it. I don't know, but it sort of just doesn't sort of stick out as like an iconic Bond villain base thing, does it?
I think it was a bit generic. Like the interior was kind of like all galley and bright light. So that's okay, but I think it needed more. And I think exterior, you know, obviously a stealth ship had to look something like that. Yeah. Perhaps it wasn't big enough or something, I'm not sure. But I think interior was almost a little bit generic. Like,
yeah, I'd agree with that. You need to draft in Ken Adam, don't you?
Yeah, I
just
think
tart it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think it was. Well, no, but it's true. I think it was missing that sort of side of things, unfortunately.
Now, in terms of the death of Carver,
right?
Again, we've got a poetic one. He's with his sea drill. He just gets mangled in it. Yeah. Feels that ending feels a bit contrived though, doesn't it? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It sort of.
And the line, I'm not overly keen.
I've got some breaking news. Is it breaking news? Is that what he says?
Yeah, I've got some breaking news for you, Elliot. Give the people what they want, and then and that's a little bit. It's a bit like Daniel's. We have a mutual friend and all that. And you know, there's one or two lines, and that's definitely one of the ones which I don't think works all that well. Yeah. But the idea of the sea drill I thought was good in terms of how, you know, you see it break into the submarine and flood them and stuff, and the fact that he was killed by it, at least it links to him, so that is good. Yeah. But I think I completely agree. Imagine if he had the chakra torture. We see him early on in the film torturing someone, so we know he's fucked up. Then, like halfway through, it's brought up, and perhaps Bond sees him, and you know it's a close call. Then at the end, there's a little battle, and it's used, and then at the very end, maybe that's some part of his demise or something. I don't know. Or something along those lines. I think was needed.
Or maybe if they could have saved this for later and had him fall into the printing press as his death.
Yeah. Well, why not? Yeah.
Yeah.
Could
maybe.
be.
But,
who do you mean, Bond or Carver?
Carver, obviously. But you know, if you're going to do a poetic death, but I feel like his death kind of falls a bit flat for me.
Yeah, me too. I think overall, I think the idea for this villain was great. I think the sort of scheme was a good idea. I think the look was pretty good. I think they did the look quite well. I think the only thing is what we've just said. Basically, is just missing that one thing to make it that little bit more. He's got the craziness. You know, he's got the energy, which you do remember, but it's just that nastiness. You just needed a bit more nasty.
So once again, we'd like to make it clear to Barbara Broccoli and Eon Productions, we are available for script rewrites and script doctor services. If you're having problems with Spectre, send it our way. We'll sort it out. There we go. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Nice. Good stuff. Moving on. Oh my God, Electra King, I love you. Oh my God. This woman awakens the beast in me. She really does. Like, there's just, you know, I think you've got the same with Volpe, haven't you, old Fiona? Yeah. Like, you know, when you look at a Bond lady and it just gets you right down in your loins. Yeah. Electra King does this for me. Oh my goodness. I think she's probably one of the most beautiful women ever to grace this planet. Oh yeah, I'm a big fan. Yeah, lovely.
I'm a huge fan as well. Yeah. She is gorgeous, but it's not only how pretty she is, it's or even how she dresses, because that dress at the end of the film, oh my God, she looks awesome in that. But it's her character and how she uses her looks, how she seduces people with her looks, how you know she knows how hot she is basically, and that is her main weapon. It's not that. It's not a gun. It's not a whip. It's not anything like that. It is her looks. That is the most deadly weapon on her. And by golly, has she got damn hot looks. So I mean, obviously, this is great because again, this is a little bit where you're not quite sure, is she a goodie, is she a baddie? It's all a bit weird. You see Renard, you think he's the main villain, and then later on you find out that she's sort of pulling the strings behind it, and she's the one that's kind of turned him in a way. So yeah, I think she's great. So in terms of of her, obviously we mentioned how hot she is, but in terms of her sort of the way that she dresses or stuff like that, are you keen? I was going to say,
I mean,
yeah, like,
understatement of the year, that one. No, I think it's great. I like the story, like with this, like in the sense that the whole kind of Stockholm syndrome thing.
Yeah,
I think that's an interesting kind of angle, and the first and only villainess. Like,
indeed,
obviously we've had female Bond henchman villains, but like in terms of being the main villain. This is like the kind of the first one.
A bit too late for me, I think. I think it would have been nice to have seen one earlier than that. But at least we got one.
Yeah, but it's I like how kind of like sort of manipulative and controlling she is. Like that scene says it all, doesn't it? When he's got her at gunpoint and she says, "You can't kill me," or whatever it is.
I love that bit.
Like, and then he just fucking does it anyway. I love that bit, man. That is brilliant. Deadly Bond. Love it.
Yeah.
And I think she's great. I think she's a memorable villain. I'd definitely have her on the poster.
Yeah, I'd have her somewhere else.
If only as an opportunity to have a look at her. But there you go.
Also, she can tell she's a nutter because she mutilated her own ear, didn't she? So she could use that as an excuse to get past the guards or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Obviously uses her body and stuff like that. She's extremely clever. She's sort of set all this up, and although she wouldn't have done prior to being kidnapped, would she? Because I wonder if she would have just been a nice lady, a nice run of the mill girl next door. Yeah. Everything's happy. And it was all down to that kidnapping that turned her. What do you think?
There you go. Maybe so. But the other thing to consider as well is that, as again, apologies to lady listeners, but when you've got a woman who is a little bit on the crazy side, their kind of, let's say, abilities in the bedroom are usually through the roof, man. So like, there's that to look forward to for Bond.
Yeah.
So yeah, but so yeah. I mean, what can I say? I think she's brilliant. I think she's a memorable villain. I think there's an interesting backstory and plot to her. I think she's great.
Yeah, I mean the way that she's turning the chair, the torture chair, where she's turning and it's going into the back of Bond's neck while she's straddling him, knowing that he's getting a rock on right at that time. Yeah. She's just like, that she, even off camera, she's gently pulsating on top of him and rubbing him up and down and stuff like that. She wants to give him one last sort of thrill or whatever.
Yeah.
One last screw. No, she's brilliant. And I mean, in terms of the whole plot then, so what we're looking at, obviously we mentioned about the kidnapping, the Stockholm Syndrome, the fact that she's kind of reversed it on Renard. Obviously, her dad was involved. Robert King was friendly with M, and she murdered her own father, didn't she? Replaced his lapel pin with something that would set it off. So she blamed him for being kidnapped, so she murdered him. She obviously wanted to get M as well. And then when Bond kind of, they're at the funeral and then Bond gets to see her again, he tries to warm to her, and then she basically seduces Bond as well. The thing that is a little bit careless is the whole, what is it? What's the lie? Come on. There's no point in living if you can't feel alive. In terms of, she says that, and then obviously Renard says that, and that's a little bit careless. It's like giving the game away a bit too much, and and I thought that was a little bit careless. But I mean, overall, I think she's great. And it was. I remember watching that film, thinking this is really refreshing. We're seeing, like, obviously we mentioned a villainess, but the sort of the whole plot and the way that she was manipulating people, that's something new, isn't it?
Dude, I think I'm a big fan of The World Is Not Enough. I know a lot of people bash it and stuff. Obviously Denise Richards could have, let's recast that one, let's change that. But I think we haven't reviewed the movie yet, but there's so much about that movie that is memorable. That boat chase is an iconic boat chase. Don't care what anybody says. That boat chase is going to be shown in 20 years when they do a montage of the best bits of Bond. That boat chase is definitely going to be in that. Yeah, definitely. and I think, every Bond film has good and bad bits in it. But I think this is a solid movie. I think she's a solid villain. I think she's great. And I think, man, that the death scene of her is brilliant. That's Bond at his best. It's like, Roger kicking Locke over the side of the cliff in cold blood.
Yeah.
I mean, shooting a beautiful woman like that, point blank range in the face.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to be
That's cold, isn't it?
You've got to be pretty cold to pull that off. And there he is. I mean, I would say that's probably the coldest moment in the whole series, wouldn't you say?
One of them, yeah, definitely. I suppose you've got
the iconic
Roger
one
Moore
is
kicking the car off the cliff, haven't you?
You got the car off the cliff. You've got Bond shooting Professor Dent.
Yeah.
But in the sense of shooting a beautiful woman like that in point blank range, who's unarmed, at least Dent's trying to kill him.
Yeah, no, that's true.
At least Locke is a nasty man, and but this is a different story, isn't it? I think it's one of the coldest moments for me, at least. Anyway,
yeah, no, I agree. Yeah,
I'm sure dozens would disagree. But but sadly, we've got to put Electra's King to bed and move on.
Whose bed?
Mine preferably, but I'm willing to share, Chris. Man,
Are you really?
We'll get a JBR sandwich on the go.
She'd be happy to go around. I think.
There you go, Sophie. If you're up for it, we'll give us a call, give us an email.
So Sophie, if you're listening to this, Sophie, get in touch.
Leave us a speak pipe message, Sophie, with your number, and we'll give you a ring. Hey. Get a JBR sandwich on the go. Oh, and next up, we've got my favourite villain of the lot.
Woohoo! Who's that?
Colonel Moon / Gustav Graves. I hate this bastard. I'm going to come straight out of the gate and say I hate him. And I'm going to tell you why. He's a North Korean colonel, right?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all. Okay, and well, I mean, that's not such a bad thing, I suppose. He's a North Korean colonel. Good for him. But at the next level, that he has a facial machine that turns into an English upper class white dude, who all of a sudden is this super well respected man in society that, like, rubbing shoulders with royalty and has this thing, and it's all within the space of how long? How long has Bond been in captivity, Chris?
2 years.
2 years.
I think.
What a load of bollocks.
Pretty much, I agree. Actually, yeah, I do like. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, I mean, the start. I can't defend it. I don't think. I like the start where he is the sort of he's the North Korean colonel, and you see him. I did like the opening bit where you see him sort of doing the sort of kickboxing on the punch bag, and then you open it up, and that's his latest anger management dude. And I thought that was kind of funny. What I didn't like is the fact that if he knew all this martial art back then, why didn't you see him do it when he's Gustav Graves later on? Because he still would have had those skills, wouldn't he? That's yeah. Well,
one
we're going to
of
get into
many holes. This is going to turn into a 5-hour episode of us just pissing all over Die Another Day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess we've got to rein it in. I think if I had to find a positive, I would say that his smarminess is somewhat
when he's
entertaining.
Gustav Graves.
Yeah, when he's Gustav Graves, his smarminess. I kind of like. I don't like it, but I kind of like in the fencing sequence when he kind of nips Bond's chin and he's like, "Oh dear, do you want to continue?" And then Bond does reverses that on him later, which I think is nice. It's a nice little touch. I don't like him. Other than that, I feel just he's a cartoon. Do you know what this is? I came to a conclusion the other day. This film is the Batman and Robin of Bond.
Right, and why do you say that?
Because, the George Clooney Batman and Robin film where they've got nipples on the batsuit, and it's like, I almost expect Arnold Schwarzenegger to come out of the Ice Palace with this big gun and be like, let me take you to the cooler,
Yeah.
It's
I still see you.
Yeah, it's like a 60s Batman episode.
Yeah.
Or just a bad Batman movie, this film. Gustav Graves, what's his plot? He's got some stupid outfit that he puts on, that weird arm thing, and is it another satellite or something? I haven't watched this in 13 years, so I don't even know anymore.
You must have done.
I haven't. I promise you. I watched it at the cinema.
Honestly.
I watched it at the cinema once, and then I guess I had it on the box set that came out, and I watched it once just to make sure. It was as bad as I thought it was, and that's it. I've still only seen this
Seriously?
film twice. Yeah,
Really?
that's it.
Oh
yeah.
my god! I didn't know that. I thought you'd at least seen it like a dozen times or something.
No. That was it. I choose it, man. I remember clear as day walking back from the cinema after seeing that and being absolutely gutted on every level.
Yeah.
I just because it had been a 3-year wait, hadn't it, since World Is Not Enough?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
And I'd be like, man, that was so shit. That was so next level shit. And being so disappointed. And then I tested it out on DVD. No, still, it was as bad as I thought it was. And that's it. I haven't seen it since. Well, wouldn't it be funny if I liked it when I watch it again?
I think you will. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Ugh.
Because it is one of the best in the series. But you just don't know it yet. But anyway, we're talking about the movie. Right, let's go back to it. Okay, so Gustav Graves. To start the opening pre-title sequence when he's like that, I think when he's in that character, that character's kind of good. I think they're just basically, they are two different actors, but they are two different people, and that transformation is super fantasy level, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like the whole thing with Zhao, the way that he's kind of in mid-transformation and he's got that diamonds, I quite like that. And he still looks similar, whereas this is like completely... And the fact that he says, oh, I modelled him on you sort of thing, and that is all a bit, I'm not sure. But I still like Toby Stevens in the role. I think Toby Jones is like the little dude. He looks nothing like him. Toby Stevens in the role. I do like him in the role. And like obviously the fencing scene I think is one of the best scenes in the film. He has got that arrogance and that smarminess and that sort of smile. The little corner of his lips sort of goes up, the sort of smirking sort of thing. And so there are some plus points to it. I know it's a bit weird to say that, but there are some plus points to it. I think as it gets, the closer it gets towards the end of the film, the harder it gets to like this film and also the characters within it. And Gustav Graves is one of them. The whole suit thing with the visor with the eyes and then controlling the Icarus. It's just like you asked a 4-year-old to come up with a Bond plot, and that's what they did.
It is, isn't it? It is exactly what it is.
Like, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. So visually, I don't think it's too bad. Visually, I think, the fact that Toby Stevens was the youngest villain in the series, I think that was a good thing. That says something that's a bit different. So that was all right. I think in terms of the scheme, okay, so I almost want to forget about the transformation because that's just so stupid. And the whole North Korean, South Korean thing, I've got no time for that at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
That it's almost like, again, it's like an added on part, which is just
And also,
bollocks.
don't call him Colonel Moon.
Yeah, I know.
We've had the book Colonel Sun, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to throw an homage to that, don't call him Colonel Moon.
No.
Like, don't even bother.
Mr. Kill.
Yeah. Don't even get me started on Mr. Kill.
Oh my God.
Don't
Right,
even.
okay.
We'll be here for half an hour.
Right, okay, we got to get past this. Okay, so it's not too bad, but the whole... Okay, so the plot is he's using conflict diamonds to create this Icarus satellite, which creates this energy, which obviously they're going to use to... blow up all the mines that have been laid in no man's land in between the demilitarized zone. So then the North Korean troops can walk down into South Korea and start a war. That's basically his plot.
Is it?
Yes, that is his plot. But the whole Icarus thing and stuff is silly. And I don't know. I think when we review it, the first half of the film, you'll see some positives in it because there are some, but it just goes.
Do you know what? I remember thinking that, like, in the sense that it was a film that had before they made it, had its heart in the right place.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like, that whole thing about him getting captured and all that kind of stuff, and 11 months or whatever it was in captivity, bundled, bedraggled with his beard. Yeah. Brilliant. We've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
Treading new ground. Amazing. Yeah. Bring it on. And I do like the scene where he walks into the hotel lobby all wet with his pajamas on. Just as if he owns the place. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't think there is anything about this film that is any good. Like, it's just...
Okay. So basically, the way that Bond overcomes the plot is basically he obviously has to destroy that Icarus satellite. because that's the thing.
Yeah.
So the way that he destroys it, obviously that satellite is being controlled by Gustav Graves, who's wearing that suit. So they, there's the two-way fight where he's fighting Gustav Graves, and Miranda Frost and Jinx are having their sort of sword fight as well. Now the fight between Gustav Graves and Bond, for me, it's not great in terms of, this guy, we've seen him at the start, and he's this kickboxing dude, and he does nothing like it. He's got this suit, and it's got this, let's press the electricity button. Let's press, it does annoy me. And I'm trying to think if there's something good, but even the fight was pretty boring. And then there's the whole thing with, the parachute, and then his demise, obviously, he presses the button, and then the parachute gets sucked into the propeller, and then he goes in. Again, that's a little bit like, you've kind of remember it from other films, sort of, in a way, don't you? That sort of type thing. And
I remember something similar like that happens in the Schwarzenegger film Eraser. There's a scene like that where that happens. Yeah,
and that's
that bit where they get in the helicopter and fall out the back of the plane and then start oh my God, it's like the worst James Bond computer game, way over the top retardedness, reproduced on film with just lashings of shit. That's as far as I can. Warm, putrid shit.
Okay, what did you think about the whole thing with...
I thought it was awful.
Yeah, I know. But, okay, this is probably going to make it worse. So this guy's a North Korean colonel, but somehow he gets this fencing woman and turns her by making the gold-winning fencer fail a drugs test, so she'll get gold, and then suddenly she's now going to be on and do whatever he says. Plus, she's also an MI6 employee, and she uses him to get to Bond. And does he sleep with her or not? And what do you think about that?
I for a moment there, I thought you were talking about Madonna, and I was just going to fall into a loud barrage of swearing and screaming and throwing my computer across the room. But we're not, so let's not mention the unmentionable.
No.
Miranda Frost. She's
in relation to Gustav Graves, I mean now. So obviously we're talking about the villains.
I don't know. I can't even really remember much.
I tell you what, Tom. Shall we move on? What do you
let's
think?
do it.
Shall we move on?
I've got the up now, Chris. I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
Let's move on. Okay, how do you like the next villain we're going to talk about?
Thankfully, after all that, we have one of my favourites. And I am grateful to Die Another Day for existing on one level, which is the fact that it then gave us Casino Royale.
Yeah.
And I think Le Chiffre, he's a Fleming villain, an original Fleming villain, so that's great. Now, his portrayal in the film, however, is different to the book. In the book, he's like a portly, kind of sort of chubby dude.
Yeah.
Whereas
like the 1954 TV version.
Exactly.
Very similar. Yeah.
Whereas the Le Chiffre of the movie, I think this dude, man, he's going to be up there as an all-time top-tier classic villain in years to come. Because he has a striking look about him. He looks like evil personified. He's got that horrible sort of pale sort of look, pasty skin, black slick back hair. The other thing is the tears of blood. Now that is an absolute work of genius, Chris. Yeah. I love that because it's like a Bond villain, like a classic Bond villain, but it's brand new. And it's like, it's not a silly thing. It's like a derangement of the tear duct, weeping blood, nothing sinister, but it is really sinister and it's so memorable. And I think it's brilliant. Ugh.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. Like, again, it's like, it ticks all the boxes, doesn't it? It is the classic sort of thing. It's got the physical disfigurement, but the fact that they allude to it in that way is just so cool. And, he's like basically saying, well, yeah, it's there, but, I love it. I think it's a great idea. Whoever came up with that idea, I think is brilliant.
Yeah.
I think he looks great. He's always quite impeccably dressed as well. When he's at the casino table, he's rocking that sort of all black look. he looks pretty good then. I think the character himself is great because he's not like, again, this is a bit of a different sort of villain because he's not sort of, he's kind of working for other villains almost, isn't he? He's kind of like the money man, you know, criminals give him their money and he has to sort of look after it. And obviously something that he doesn't do too well because he tries to do it with the Skyfleet thing to blow it up and that goes wrong, doesn't he?
Well, that's it. So I mean, in the book, I believe it was money from Smersh that he'd spent on business opportunities that had gone south, and he'd lost all the money. So he's trying to win the money back to pay Smersh off. Whereas here, it's though I think they're Nigerians, aren't they? Those dudes at the that come after
Uganda
Uganda
they were in, weren't they?
And so there's that whole angle, and I think it's great, man. I think that whole plot is A, it's plausible, B, it's from the original Fleming, which is great. It's an adaptation of that, and I'm a huge fan, big time.
I think he's brilliant. I mean, you can tell he's pretty ruthless as well. Like he's not like, again, physically in a battle, especially with Daniel Craig, you know Daniel Craig would come out on top. But his sort of weapons up there, isn't he? He's a clever guy. He's, you know, Le Chiffre, the number. He's sort of a mathematical genius in a way. Always goes on probability and stuff like that.
Which is great, isn't it? That whole angle. It's like the whole. You remember the movie Rain Man, where he's like counting cards and all that kind of stuff? Like that is like such a classic Fleming-esque thing. Like if he's that good with numbers that you know, the fact that he can look at a poker tournament as a potential way to earn money back is a great
well
thing.
It reminds me a little bit of Kronstein actually, and from Russia with Love, you know, the chess player. And he's the planner and strategist, and he can think several moves ahead and is clever like that. And I think there's quite a similarity between those two.
They could almost have been cut from the same cloth, those two. Like in terms of look as well, even, you know.
No, there is definitely that sort of bit about them. It's quite good. So what do you think of his sort of scheme and his plan then, Le Chiffre?
So it's the original Fleming, so I love it. I think it's great. The only thing I would change, and it's not a Le Chiffre thing, so I should probably save this for the actual movie review when we get around to it. But like what I'd like to have seen is I would have liked to have seen them play Baccarat rather than Texas Hold'em. Do you know what I mean? Because it's to me that is the James Bond game, isn't it? You know?
It is. It was just bringing it up for modern audiences, isn't it? Because Texas Hold'em is the biggest card game, I suppose.
Which I totally understand why they did it. It's just me being like a purist, I suppose.
Yes.
But I think the whole scheme is great.
He did play. Did he? Oh no, he didn't. Did he? Yeah, no, he didn't. He played. I was going to say when he won the DB5, but that wasn't Baccarat either. It would have been nice if maybe he'd played it once in the film, but obviously he didn't. Did he? He played Texas Hold'em again. Yeah. But anyway, there we go. Sorry, I digress.
But yeah, I love it. I love the fact that just everything about this movie is different, and you don't expect it. You know, even though obviously you've read the book. I think that the whole thing of you know, you've got the card game and then you've got those little bits of action sort of interspersed throughout. You know, Bond will go upstairs for a break, end up having a fight with somebody, come back in his fresh shirt, and he'll sit down to play the next round and all that kind of stuff. I think that was expertly done, brilliantly paced, excellent.
Are we talking about the film or the villain now?
Oh God, I'm getting too excited, and I'm talking about the film. Sorry, I'll rein it in. I'll try, but I love it too much. I tell you what, I love the way they eyeball each other across that card table. I think it's brilliant, you know, facing each other off. Like, I think it's great. That's when Daniel comes back in after the poisoning, and you can just see on Le Chiffre's face of like, fuck, he's back. Like, love it. Yeah,
I think
stuff.
It's great. And I do like the bit, and it's quite clever as well in the build up. You know, when Bond comes to the hotel. I guess I'm talking about the film now, but when he sort of gives him his actual name. To the hotel reception, and because he already knows who I am, all he gets is a name and what have you. But that tells you something about Le Chiffre as well and his character, and I thought that was quite cool as well.
Yeah, it's nice. I suppose we can't mention Le Chiffre without talking about the infamous testicle scene, which again I thought was expertly done and greatly acted by Mads. That whole knotted rope thing. and all that kind of stuff. I thought
Still, even now, I'm feeling a little bit tender just sitting here, thinking, "Oh my God, I don't want that to happen."
you got to hold the vegetables. You got to do it. But yeah, I think Le Chiffre is brilliant. I think he's, for me, we haven't talked about the tiers yet. Le Chiffre is a tier 1 villain for me. Immediately straight out of the gate. Love it.
Yeah, he's great. I think he's brilliant. And the difference is that he isn't, the villain within the story, the main villain within the story. Although he is in the film, he isn't the overarching.
Well, this brings up an interesting point, actually, in the sense that what we find out in Spectre, really, when it kind of loops back around to Mr. White and we see his appearance, this means that ultimately, if indeed Mr. White is working for Spectre and they're not separate organisations, that Spectre has been working behind the scenes throughout the entire Daniel Craig tenure, right back to Casino Royale, in the sense that Blofeld will have sent Mr. White to kill Le Chiffre, and all that kind of stuff. So, depending on how they play this off in Spectre, it can add a whole extra level of poetry to the whole Daniel saga, don't you think?
I would love that. I would love that so much. Oh, that's just made me get all excited.
We love Casino Royale. We love it. We love it hard. Yet, how much more would we love it if what the events in Spectre mean the Casino Royale events take on a different meaning? And like,
my God, that would just give that film. You don't think it can get any better, and then if it gave it another level on top of that, wow. I hope that happens now.
Yeah, me too. Anyway,
so, okay, so what about his demise then? What do you think about Le Chiffre's demise?
Again, I like the fact that everything about this movie is different. And the fact that Le Chiffre gets killed by Mr. White and Bond doesn't kill him is great. It's fresh. You don't have to have that formula every time where Bond kills, and you get the poetic death. I think it works perfectly. I think it was great. Having that woven into the torture scene, just as it is in the book, brilliant.
Yeah. Do you know what I really like about that scene?
Go on.
Which might have changed had it been filmed in Skyfall, is that after Le Chiffre gets shot and you see his head go into view, Bond doesn't say, "Oh, there's a hole in the head," or something like that. Which you can imagine might have happened if it had been in Skyfall.
Yeah, that's true. They would have worked in a one-liner, wouldn't they? Yeah.
So I'm really glad that they didn't, because
you'll never be the head of a major corporation. Or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Good point. So Le Chiffre, I salute you. I'm sticking you right up there on the poster next to Donald.
He's brilliant.
But we'll talk about tears
with a little bit of blood.
Yeah, absolutely.
What sort of tears? Hey?
Wow, good point. Yeah, the painted tiered ranking system.
Yeah.
Anyway, next up, I predict this one isn't going to go quite so well. Dominic Green of Green Planet, of Quantum of Solace. Indeed. How do you feel about old Dom?
Now, I actually don't mind him as much as probably what you think, and as much as perhaps what I thought when I first saw the movie. I think he's grown on me to actually become quite a pretty good villain in terms of this is the other one where they try to make it quite realistic, almost like, okay, so visually he hasn't got a lot. He's got these quite big eyes. He's got these eyes where you're like, oh, okay, they're kind of like look a bit strange, but he hasn't got any sort of physical. I know we talk about physical defects, but he hasn't really got anything quite like that. He's quite sort of small in stature as well, isn't he? He's not sort of a tall bloke, and he's very much a kind of, a run-of-the-mill sort of person, I guess. But they wanted him to be quite realistic, like the everyman sort of thing, I think. But he has grown on me a lot, actually. But what I'll do is I'll let you go first. I'll let you sort of give me your thoughts, and then I'll sort of say why.
Okay, so for me, on the plus side, I feel like he's got that horrible, creepy vibe about him, but that's sort of almost on a sort of a Donald Pleasance type character, where he's kind of smaller in stature. He's got that sort of creepy sort of like, I imagine he'd have a very wobbly handshake that was very clammy.
Very clammy, yeah. Very clammy, yeah.
And all that all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I just don't think he's that memorable. He doesn't. Again, he's another one of those that doesn't have that thing that makes him kind of stick out. and I guess maybe you can't have that every time. It's going to be difficult to make those things every single time. And you had such a good one with Casino. I mean, how would you follow that? I don't know. But yeah, I suppose I band him up with people like Kristatos and Stromberg, in the sense that, you know, he did a job, but he doesn't really stand out. He's probably not going to be on the poster.
No. I think, it's tricky, because I think what they were trying to do with that villain was to completely be the opposite of a standout, memorable villain.
Yeah. And
that's what they were trying to do. And I think they succeeded in doing that. He did have his ruthless side, though, not perhaps in terms of sort of killing people, but you know, when they're in the desert hotel and he basically tells the sort of general to sign the paper and you know, otherwise, you know, they're in control of the water supply, and if he doesn't, then you know, they won't get any, basically. So he has got that ruthless side, and as a cog of Quantum, I think he is quite good. I think he does that job well. I don't think he'd ever be, again, you wouldn't put him as the head of an organization, like in terms of...
Do you know what I think? You could almost have him as Blofeld. Like, if you were to cast a Donald Pleasance-esque Blofeld, you could have him in that role. He's got that sort of bug-eyed, sort of goggly-eyed kind of look about him. Stick him in a, you know, with a white pussycat on his lap, and he's got an accent that works for that. You know, I don't know. He just doesn't sort of stick out for me at all, really. Not in terms of his acting ability, because I think he's great and he comes across as really creepy, and he does have that hard edge, but again, just sort of, I don't know, just needs a little something.
A little bit more there. What about his scheme then?
So that boiled down to the water supply, didn't it? And sort of, you know, General Medrano, wasn't it?
That's right,
basically kind of putting puppet sort of leaders in Bolivia and all that kind of stuff, which you know, I think that goes on in real life every day of the week. So yeah, I mean, that's a sort of a down to earth kind of plot, and I do feel like the whole water supply thing is probably going to be a real life issue in the coming decades, you know.
Definitely.
So yeah, I think in terms of the scheme, I think it's a bit ahead of its time in that respect.
I actually like that side of things. I really do. I think it's nice to have something that's, you know, we've had gold, we've had diamonds, we've had oil. No one thinks of water. But particularly in sort of those countries and stuff like that, it is a necessity. And the way that film then displays that with obviously the villagers without much water, I really like that side of things. And he's the one that's when you see them meeting at Tosca, he's the one that's pushing for this water idea, because there's other people that's saying about other activities. Yeah. But he's the one that says we should be concentrating on this. So, you know, it's fully his idea. It's one that I want to watch again, actually, because I don't know. The film's grown on me, and I think he is growing on me a little bit. I think it's a bit strange when when you get to the end, what they wanted to do with him was, because he was a small sort of in stature, they didn't want him to be, he's trained to do this. You know, they wanted him to almost fight like a bit of a crazy person, like your normal person that's never fought. You know, like hands flying everywhere, almost like a cat
fighter.
Panicky fighter. Pick up the axe and swinging it and stuff like that. So again, it's a different take, isn't it, on it? In terms of the film poster, I might put him on there purely for those eyes. Those bug eyes, but he'd probably be just a face in the corner somewhere. He hasn't got that extra sort of thing to associate with him, has he? I don't think. Not that I can. No,
it's not like a Fabergé egg or an iguana or a golden gun. No. He doesn't have anything like that. I think he's just sort of, you know, he'd be down there in the corner next to Kristatos on the poster, and next to Stromberg. Yeah, again, just falling a bit flat. I think, like, in terms of his death, I think that was a nice kind of a nice ruthless way to kill him. It's like Bond doesn't even shoot him; he just gives him a can of oil.
Yeah,
and then that kind of point at the end when they say we found him in the desert with 2 bullets in the back of his head.
Yeah,
I almost feel like you didn't need that. No. You could have just said we found him dead in the desert with engine oil in his stomach.
Yeah, because they do say the engine oil in his stomach, don't they?
They do say that. Yeah, but I feel like you didn't need that.
Yeah,
you know, it's it would have been a better death for him but he just tried to drink the engine oil, and Bond's ruthless coldness leaving him out there was what killed him. But then
agree,
again, like we say, with the events of Spectre, we might find out who it was that put the 2 bullets in the back of his head.
There we go. You know, could have been Mr. White, maybe.
Could have been, absolutely. Good stuff.
Yeah.
But there we go. So we move on to our most recent villain to date, which is Mr. Raoul Silva, also known as Tiago Rodriguez. Thoughts?
Absolutely superb. Every moment this guy's on the screen, I love it. He's a bit like, in terms of your Dr. No, a long time, obviously not quite as long as Dr. No, but there's quite a long time before we actually get to see this guy. Everything that we hear about him before, it's a bit of, you're going to be scared, very much like Dr. No, in fact. You're going to be scared of this guy. He's got power, very similar to Dr. No, actually. But the first reveal is superb. It's memorable. It's clever. The dialogue's amazing. Straight away, you've got his character. He comes out and he does his story about the rats and stuff like that. And you're like, it's just so original. And this guy, you're like, and the way he's dressed is all flamboyant, and the cream jacket, and then the shirt, and like the crazy hair, and like he's so confident in himself as well. Not necessarily arrogant, but I don't know. There's something about him, and I think Javier Bardem is brilliant in the role. I really love him.
I think that opening monologue with the long walk that's going to be a classic villain scene. Like, I
think it already is.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing is, he is the most recent villain, so it's I always find it's difficult to sort of predict how things are going to last, because it's like with the passage of time, things do change, and you think, do you know what, that maybe wasn't as good as I thought it was, or maybe that's better than I thought it was at the time, and all that kind of stuff. But I think like making an original Bond villain who isn't inspired by an actual Fleming character is so difficult, because it's like, how do you do it without being a cliche and just giving him a hook hand or something, or another scar on the face? But again, it's like the Dominic Green versus Lashif thing. How do you make him stand out? How do you make him memorable without going down the cliche route? And I remember seeing the first shot of Javier and being like, what is up with his Barnet? Like, that hairstyle was like, what the hell are they doing? Yeah. But then when you see the film, it just makes total perfect sense. And it's like the classic Fleming thing, isn't it? His villains had to have something different about them. In terms of Fleming's thoughts, if you had to be not English, anyone who was foreign, or whatever, they're going to be a villain at some point. They're either gay, deformed, whatever it is that Fleming didn't approve of would be thrown in there as a villain, this kind of thing. And I feel like Silva could have been a classic Fleming villain.
Yeah, I think he's great, and the fact that he's got the sort of homoerotic tendencies with Bond, I think that's brilliant as well, because initially some people might have thought, oh my god, this is weird, but again, you're pushing the boundaries slightly, aren't you? And like, it just gives this character even more power, I think. You
know what, that's something that's grown on me, because I remember that scene just after the introduction with him. Bond's tied up in the chair, and Bond says, what makes you think this is my first time? And I remember thinking, hang about, what's all this about? Again, because it's so different. It was jarring, and I was like, I'm not sure about that. But then looking back on it, I'm thinking, I think that was a good move. Like, I tell you what it did. I bet you it made the audience uncomfortable, because it was something new and different and unexpected. And I fully support new, different and unexpected with Bond.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I think it was a brave step, I think, by Eon, but I think they nailed it right on. but the character, he's just so good. Like, I think, again, in terms of, I think he looks brilliant. I think his scheme, okay, so I love the fact that it's none of this sort of technobabble in terms of, he's like a computer hacker with, that spends hours sort of doing this or the other. It's basically, I can press this button and change the course of a government or whatever,
Yeah.
I quite like that, because that's pretty much probably what does happen nowadays, isn't it? Like with the Sony leak, even the leaker thing, it was just someone obviously not on a deserted island somewhere, but you know what I mean. And so I think that's good. But the whole motive behind him and M, I mean, Bond's almost like a side factor in this film. He's almost like, it is the main relationship and the main story is Silva and M, and I think that's so powerful. And the whole backstory about him being a former agent who might have been better than Bond, or at least he thought he was, and then thinking that M had, blaming M for the whole, he'd been captured to take cyanide, and then he took the cyanide so he wouldn't have to sort of say anything. Obviously, it didn't kill him, but he left him deformed and in physical discomfort, obviously. Blaming M, and then his mission was to get a chance to kill her ultimately, but obviously to see her and stuff like that. And Bond is almost an observer within this. Obviously, he gets involved, but, again, that's another brave move from the script writers and Eon and everything, and I think it works so well. And that whole thing with him and Em is just so powerful, and it's almost like, well, it boils back down to his story with the rats. It's like him and Bond being the rats and both working for the same sort of mother. I think it's great. Yeah. What do you think about that side of things?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly different, isn't it? There's no kind of grand scheme other than just revenge on M, trying to kill M, and I kind of like those basic plots, I don't, it doesn't have to be world domination every time. It's cool. And it's, again, that's something we haven't seen before. But that kind of throws back to the Man with the Golden Gun book, in the sense that at the end of You Only Live Twice, Bond ends up with amnesia, and settles down in Japan, and then at the beginning of The Man with the Golden Gun, we find that he's been kind of brainwashed by the Russians, or Smersh, I think it might be, and basically brainwashes him and sends him back to kill M, and he tries to assassinate M at the beginning of the book. So it's kind of like there's a little flavour of that in it, in the sense that Silver's mission is to kill M. And
I like that.
It is a nice plot, nice simple plot, nice down to earth plot. I think it's good. In terms of his death, a little bit on the underwhelming side, I think. But again, I don't have a better one. I feel like it's a poignant one. It's in the kind of the little chapel on Skyfall Estate and stuff. So it's right next to his parents' graves. But in terms of like, a knife thrown in the back by Bond, I suppose the memorable part of that is the fact that M dies.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, there are several moments in the build up to that. I like the bit where he's in that chamber, the see-through chamber, and when he first sees M for like the first time in years, and you can see, the effect that it has on him. And then there's a whole set in motion where he escapes and stuff like that. And don't forget the inquiry scene as well, where he dresses as a police officer, and then and he sets that. So there's a lot of sort of action going on there. But I love the fact he's a bit of a nutter as well when he goes to Skyfall Lodge and he's in the helicopter and playing the music and stuff like that. But what I really like is at the end when he's in the chapel and he's close to M, and I think we might have said this before, but you really don't know what he's going to do. At one point, for the very first time I watched it, I didn't know if he was going to kiss her or what, because he basically got his massive hand around her head, pulling her close to him, and you can just, the performance that Javier gives then is incredible, because he is displaying such a mismatch sort of lot of emotion. It could be anger, it could be sadness, it could be fear, it could be like it's just so high level stuff, and he could kiss her or whatever. And then when he puts their heads together, to kill them both at the same time. I thought that was genius, and I thought that was fantastic, and shows that that was a culmination of his story. He didn't care about his own life. He to him, it was a bit like Renard in a way. He was alive, but he was almost dead because he's got this sort of thing. But his mission was to kill M, obviously prior to dying, and then for that gun to go up to kill them both. I think that's great. I really do like it. I think the only thing about that scene that I would have loved is if Daniel's line wasn't there. I think that line just ruins that scene, and it's pees me off whenever I see it. I just want to edit it out. But aside from that, I think it's great. And the fact that, okay, it is only a knife, but he gets up and he sees that Bond's got him, and he does have a slight sort of smile, chuckle, a bit Max Zorin-esque. So he's got that sort of nutty side going before he goes down. But he's also an intimidating, like physically, he's quite tall, but his face is quite intimidating as well, isn't it? In a way. So I think he's great. I mean, straight away, easily on the Bond villain poster, probably one of the main ones for me. I love him. I think he's a great villain, inspired villain for me.
Agreed. I think he's one of the best things about that film. Absolutely.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Cool. So that just about brings us up to date, doesn't it? We're going to have to do a Bond Villains episode part 3 for Stavro Blofeld.
But are we going to be talking about Lucius Sciarra or Oberhauser or Blofeld or Denby? Who are we going to be talking about?
Yeah, good point. Absolutely.
Or could it be Q? Maybe Q's turned to the dark side.
The dark side. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've got to kind of round everybody up and put them all into our 3 tiers, haven't we?
So are we going to do the second half first and then all together?
Do you know what? I reckon let's go right back to the beginning and just go through in sequence to keep things easy. Okay. So, Doctor No, tier 1, 2 or 3?
Definitely 1.
Agreed, definitely. From Russia with Love, we've got
Rosa Klebb. Definitely 1 for me.
Tier 1 for me as well. Yeah. Lovely. Goldfinger.
Definitely 1 without a shadow of a doubt.
Tier 1 again, bang. 3 in a bag straight away.
Yeah.
Mr. Largo.
Now, I wouldn't put as 1. I don't know if he'd be 2 or 3 yet. I don't know if he'd be... I'd probably put him as 2 for now, and then I'll see where everyone else is.
Yeah, I'm gonna put Largo in as a 2.
Yeah, I'll put him as a 2. Okay.
Next up, You Only Live Twice. We have Donald Pleasance as Stavro Blofeld.
It'd be 1 for me, without a doubt.
Absolutely, tier 1. Next up, we have On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Telly Savalas as Blofeld.
I put him as a 2. I think he's a great Blofeld, and I know a lot of people came back saying he was their favourite Blofeld, and I think the physical side to him is brilliant. You know, everyone talks about it, the way he holds a cigarette, and obviously the hand thing and everything. And I do think he's brilliant, and he has a lot more to do than the Pleasance Blofeld, but it's just the iconic look and character of the Pleasance one, which for me can't be beaten, personally anyway.
He is the iconic portrayal, and nobody else to date has matched that in my book. So Telly is a tier 2 for me as well.
Same.
Diamonds Are Forever, Charles Gray's Blofeld.
Now, I know some people have said he's actually their favourite, and some people like it, and I do see where it's going. And what they try to do with it, and the sort of witty and the almost playfulness that he had. Mm-hmm. But for me, it is going to be a tier 3 for that particular Blofeld.
Okay. Yeah, I would say he's going to be a tier 3 for me as well. It's funny, if we might have actually rated these differently last time. I can't quite remember exactly how I rated everybody, so we might have wobbled a bit. But yeah, I give Charles a 3 as well.
Yeah.
Kananga.
I really like him, actually. Kananga, I think he's great. He's not iconic, but I think he's strong, he's powerful, he's menacing, he's mean. He's obviously got the duality with Mr. Big. I'd put him as a tier 2, solid tier 2.
I agree with that as well. Tier 2 for me as well. Francisco Scaramanga.
Now, this is an interesting, because you always hear Scaramanga, he's one of the best villains ever versus Bond. I think with the Golden Gun, it's really iconic. Without the Golden Gun, not quite so much. I know we said before we wanted a 1.5, and he does sit on the edge between those two for me.
He's not quite up there with Donald, but he's not on a tier 2, so he's a 1.5.
I think we can do 0.5s if we want. I think he deserves a 1.5 then. So we'll have Scaramanga as a 1.5. Okay.
Definitely. Next up, we've got Carl Stromberg.
Now, for me, he's got the webbed hands. He's got the megalomania. He's got his obsession with the sea, but he doesn't do a lot with it. I think because of the way that he died and one or two other things, I think he's going to have to be a tier 3 for me.
Yes, agreed. Like we said, it's kind of one of those things where he just doesn't really do a lot, does he? Do you know what I mean? It's just one of
Pressing
those things,
buttons,
isn't it? He doesn't really get up out of his seat at any point. I don't think you even see him walk around all that much.
A little bit you do in Atlantis, but not a huge amount. No.
And then, so next up, we've got Hugo Drax.
Now, for me, I think he's quite underrated. I know he's proper underplays the role, but I love this sort of chill factor that he gives off. I think he's menacing. I think I really like Hugo Drax. He's not iconic in terms of compared to the others, but I would put him as a tier 2.
Yeah, agreed.
Wow,
Absolutely.
So we've pretty much agreed on the first half.
Yeah, was there any that we were different on?
I don't know. I think we were pretty much the same as what we thought last week.
All right, so bringing it up to date.
Okay,
it's Kristatos.
Now, for me, I think straight away with that, I don't even have to think about it. He would be a tier 3 for me.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the lack of something memorable for me. And out of all the ones that are like that, he's probably the least memorable, I would say, or definitely one of the least memorable. So I'd put him as a tier 3.
Absolutely.
Although within the film he works well for the film, but overall he'd be a tier 3.
I agree completely. Tier 3. Kamal Khan / General Orlov.
Now, are we going to split these into 2?
Yes.
Yeah. Kamal Khan is toughy. I think he's not as up there as some of the others in tier 2, but I still prefer him to most of those in tier 3. So I don't know whether to put him as a 2.5 or a 2.
Yes, I would say the same. Like, I suppose, I don't know. He's not up there with Donald. Is he on the same level as Kananga? I don't know.
I do love Octopussy, but I don't know. Kananga's got quite a lot going for him, hasn't he? I think he probably wouldn't be as high as Kananga, but I would put him above.
So you're going to have him at a 2.5. I'm going to have him as a 2. As a
2. I'll put him as a 2 then. I'll put him as a 2 as well.
General Orlov, 3.
Yeah, he's a nutter, isn't he? But I still think he's quite a good villain. I'll put him as a 2. I'll put them both as a 2 for this one.
Next up, we've got Mr. Max Zorin.
Do you know what? I think he could even be a tier 1. For me, he's either a tier 1 or a 1.5 with Scaramanga. I would put him above a 2.
I would say, I think he's... Oh, it's tricky. I would say... Is he up? I don't think he's up there with Donald, man. I think personally...
Is that because of the film or is that because of him? Is that him personally? No, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, for example, would Austin Powers ever have a Zorin type character as a pastiche villain? I don't think he would.
Is that how we're rating them?
maybe.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, imitation is the highest form of flattery. So
of course it is. No, of course. I'd put him exactly with Scaramanga as a 1.5. I'll put them both. He's on the 1.5 category for me.
Interesting.
Would you put him as a 1, a 1.5, or a 2?
I'd have him as a 2.
A 2. Okay. I'd have him level with Scaramanga. I'd put them both as 1.5 for me.
Okay. Next up, this is going to be an interesting one. Georgi Koskov and Brad Whitaker.
If we split them into 2, I'd definitely put Whitaker as tier 3.
Yeah.
Koskov, agreed. I'd probably have as a tier 2.
Do you know what? I would say... I love Koskov.
Yeah, maybe I even love a 2.5.
I feel like Koskov, in the grand scheme of things, casual fans looking at the poster wouldn't know who Koskov was. I'd say probably in the grand scheme of things, he's probably a tier 3.
Yeah, if we're looking at it that way, him probably tier 3.
Franz Sanchez.
You know what? He's definitely at least a 1.5. I think he's fantastic. I might put him as 1.5
Ooh,
with
interesting.
Scaramanga and Zorin.
Okay, interesting.
What about you?
I would say it is tough. Donald's up there. Goldfinger's up there. He's not on that level.
Klebb.
He's not on
Dr.
that
No.
level. Kananga. Who else have we got on level 2? Kananga.
We've got Hugo Drax, Kananga.
Kananga.
Largo.
Yeah, do you know what? I think he's a level 2.
Do you?
Yeah. For me, personally.
Yeah. I'd put him above those. I'd put him as a 1.5 alongside Scaramanga, Zorin, and Sanchez. Those three are 1.5 for me.
Interesting. Okay, good stuff. Next up, Alec Trevelyan.
For me, he'd be probably a 2.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He's a 2.
Yeah.
He's a good, solid villain, but he's definitely not iconic.
No.
But he definitely does more than a Stromberg. Elliot Carver.
I'd probably put him as a 3.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Much.
Electra King.
She's nice. I'd say 2.
I'd say 2 as well. She's definitely going on my poster, whatever happens.
Yeah.
She's a 2. Interesting villain. I think underrated in the series.
Yeah.
Gustav Graves, 10.
Probably 1. 10.
I'm
him as
making a
1.5.
new category. He's not even on there. I've rubbed him out.
Is he? I'll put him as 3.5 then. Can I do that?
Yeah, you can do that. Lashif, 1 immediately. I'm going
Would
straight
you put him
for
as
it.
a 1?
Yes.
I don't know. For me, I wouldn't put him as high as the others. Possibly a 1.5.
I think it's tough. Like we say, it's tough without the passage of time. But I feel like, for me personally, he's brilliant and he's right up there. So I feel like he deserves a number 1 spot for me.
Yeah.
What about you? 1.5? You'd rank him alongside Scaramanga?
I don't know if he's quite as iconic as that. Scaramanga, Zorin, Sanchez are 3 huge villains, and I do love Lashif. If I did put him in tier 2, he'd be the top of tier 2. But no, but Kananga's in tier 2 and he's awesome. I'd probably put Lashif as tier 2 actually for me.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wouldn't put him as a 1.5.
I think looking at I think we need more time to pass. But I feel like I would definitely have him on the poster. Would the casual fan in the street know him as Lashif? I'm thinking they probably wouldn't actually. Like they might recognise him. They recognise him, but I don't know whether they'd know him by name. But I love him so much, I'm sticking him in tier 1 immediately.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Dominic Green.
Ooh, probably tier 3.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Tier 3 straight away. Interesting one. Raoul Silva. It's a tough one again because it's so recent.
Yeah,
I don't know how
hard,
he's gonna I don't know how a lot of these characters are gonna age.
Do you know he's got potential to be a 1 in my eyes? He's got potential to be a 1, but I think because of the length of time, it is tricky. You can't call something classic unless there's at least 1 film that's come out after it, or even 2 maybe. So I don't think he can be a 1 just for that factor, but I think he's amazing. I could put him as a 1.5 maybe. I think he's higher than a 2. I think he's brilliant. I'll put him as a 1.5. So my 1.5s, I've got a Scaramanga, Zorin, Sanchez, and Silva. Have I got
Interesting. So you'd rank him above Kananga? You'd rank him above Drax? Interesting.
Well, they're just iconic, aren't they? I don't know. Drax and Kananga are both brilliant villains as well. It's hard unless...
It is tough, isn't it, man?
You know what we're going to have to do is actually do them in order. But that's we're going to have to do them in order. Like as in, or at least groups of 5 maybe or something.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe we'll maybe we can do a little follow-up blog post at some point.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to. I think we're going to have to. Yeah.
Interesting. For me, Raoul Silva, I would say, again, it is tricky. I would say he's either 1.5 or 2 for me at this point.
Yeah.
But only time will tell, really. It could go up, it could go down.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of it. And in terms of what mood we're in that particular day as well, that often fluctuates things.
It does, indeed.
So, yeah, interesting.
So I love the way that we've got the tier 3, but a 1.5 tier as well. So could we make it a tier 5 or not? A 5 tier? Or should we stick with tier 3 and have the 0.5s if we want them?
That's a good point. Yeah, we're going to have to discuss this at length more. Maybe an
I think we
entire
will.
extra episode on how we'd rate them on what kind of scale, because these are the important issues that need to be discussed.
Of course.
So there you go. So that about rounds up the Villains of Bond coverage. It's been a lot of fun. It's been good, and I'm excited to delve into that. Like, I've realised going through that today that the 80s Bond is my weakest decade, and that goes for the Timmy films as well as the Roger ones. Yeah. Not so much Living Daylights. I've seen that a lot, but
I love
License to Kill and the later Rogers. So I'm excited to delve into that period. Later on this year. That's going to be good. So that brings us on to...
Just saying before that, any of their listeners as well, we want to hear their, obviously, tier systems. A lot of them came back to us with the first half of their tier systems, which are really cool. So again, if they want to come back for the second half or even the whole thing, or if you guys want to wait, me and Tom will stick on our tier system, our finalised tier system, which could be 1 to 5, it could be 1 to 3 with 0.5s or whatever. And then maybe once we've got that, then everyone can come back with what their thoughts are on all of the villains in the tier system. But we'll sort that out.
That sounds good. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's time for some Bond facts, Chris.
Bond facts. Flames, explosion, fire. Bond facts. Okay, so
what have you got for me?
Bond facts for today. In fact, there's quite a few of them which we've probably mentioned as we've gone along. Bond fact number 1. Kristatos was the first false ally in the series. So we did mention that. He was obviously a goodie and then a baddie.
He was indeed.
He was. Bond fact number 2. Aside from Blofeld, Georgy Koskov is the only other main villain to survive their encounter with Bond. So each of the other villains that we've gone through have died in one way or another, but Koskov, as we mentioned, he survived to go in the diplomatic pouch.
He might be still about. I reckon it's time to bring him back.
I think we could do, maybe. Bond fact number 3, Franz Sanchez was the first villain with an already fulfilled operation. So basically, if Bond, he was already set up, wasn't he? He was already a mega drug lord. It was just about expanding on that, really. So he was doing all right. His plan was already in operation, as it were. Whereas all of the others are pretty much trying to get somewhere. He's pretty much there anyway. Bond fact number 4, Alec Trevelyan was the first MI6 villain, which is to have a nice little spin on that.
Indeed.
Bond fact number 5, Electra King, as we mentioned, was the first villainess, and to date only sort of main villainess. So
indeed,
the news that Lucius Sciarra is an assassin points to the fact that perhaps she's not the main villain.
Yeah, she's been sent out to do some dirty work.
Yeah, which I think she'll be brilliant as, but I'd like to see another villainess turn up at some point.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I'll tell you what, here's a question. If Blofeld was now a woman, who we don't see in Spectre, in Bond 24, only sort of allude to or maybe see an arm or something, but we see in Bond 25, if you could pick any actress who would be Blofeld in today, who would you pick? Judi Dench.
That is an interesting question, and she would do a good job.
She would, if it is, yeah.
Yeah, who's like a nasty, horrible... Because what you'd need is like a Rosa Klebb type, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That's the sort of type you'd be looking for. I don't know. I think I'm going to have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah, we'll have to have a think. Okay, and finally, Bond fact number 6. Well, actually, I'm not sure if this is completely true. It's Le Chiffre is the only villain to die before the climax of the film. But Electra King is kind of on the verge of the climax, because when she dies, they still have the whole thing with a sub, don't they, where it goes down. So whether you account that as a climax or not, basically Le Chiffre and perhaps Electra are the only villains to die before the climax of the film.
We should point out, I suppose, when we do the research for Bond facts or the trivia, usually we just kind of comb Google for a bit. So there is the chance that we're like, oh, that's a good one. And then we find out later that the website got it wrong. And then we in turn get it wrong and we get told off by our listeners.
Vilified.
So, we
sometimes we come up, I do, we'll come up with stuff ourselves as well. But
that's true.
Yeah. That one's purely depends on what people think,
Yeah.
But So there we go. So that's Bond facts for today.
Good stuff. So it's time to complete our Bond trivia questions of the day. So I believe I went first, didn't I?
You did indeed, yes.
So my question is, Lois Maxwell, also known as Miss Moneypenny, was originally offered the role of what other character in Doctor No?
Was it Miss Luscious Lips?
Miss Luscious Lips.
That's not my answer. Ian Fleming did tell her she had amazing lips, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah. Was it Sylvia Trench?
It was indeed. Of course,
Ooh.
Sylvia Trench was originally meant to be a recurring character as Bond's girlfriend on the side for several movies, and of course she did appear in From Russia with Love, but was later written out and didn't appear again. So Lois obviously made the right choice.
She did indeed. Do you know her reason why she chose Moneypenny?
Because wasn't it? She thought that Sylvia Trench was a bit of a hussy, a bit of a loose one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a little bit overtly sexual, I think.
Yeah, I suppose in those days as well. Do you know what I saw on the internet the other day was somebody suggesting that Paris Carver should have been Sylvia Trench, and they have a similar look about them.
They
don't
do.
They?
That's a very good
shots.
Yeah, they do. You're right. Yeah, no, they've got that sort of look.
Maybe, I think I'd have dug that. If that.
Yeah. What if Terry Hatcher had actually been Sylvia Trench coming back? Yeah. So it was Elliot Trench, Elliot and Trench movie network.
Sylvia Trench would have been a
maiden Sylvia
name.
Carver.
So it would have been Sylvia
Carver. But Sylvia Trench.
But
that's
then
quite nice.
Because the backstory with him knowing her in the past would have kind of tied in. I think that would have been a nice idea.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah,
now
another missed opportunity.
I really like that. Yeah. That would have been brilliant. Sylvia Trench.
Because then that would have harked back to them being in the little canoe in From Russia with Love. That would have been a lovely idea.
And you've got the already hark back to Doctor No, where he's in, waiting in Stoke Poges for drinking his vodka, waiting to see who Carver would send, and he sends what would have been Sylvia Trench. Oh man, I'm gutted. That would have been brilliant. That's a shame. Whoever thought of that is really good. That's great. Yeah. Okay, on to my trivia question. So, which character in the series, other than M, is called Q by his name Major Boothroyd?
Is it Agent XXX?
It is indeed!
Yes!
Woo! And do you remember what scene in the film when she says it?
Do you know what? I can just hear her voice saying it, but I can't remember exactly when it is.
It's when Q delivers the Lotus in Sardinia, and he calls her Major Massiva, and she calls him Major Boothroyd. So that's quite nice. Yeah. Excellent. Good answer, man. Good answer.
Cool. So it's time for everybody's favourite segment of James Bond Radio. It's the Guess the Quote round.
Do you know what? I'm going to let you do the jingle this time. Go for it.
Oh, this is different. You've thrown me. All right.
Yeah.
I've got to prepare myself. Bond. James Bond.
Excellent stuff.
How was it?
Sorry about that.
I felt like I was covering somebody else's song there. It felt strange. Did I do well?
I think you did it not bad at all. Yeah. I covered Guess the Music Cue the other week, so I thought it was only fair to pass the favour back.
That's true. Absolutely. So it was my quote last time, wasn't it?
It was indeed, yes.
So
very similar to what the jingle you just did, actually.
There you go. So my quote is...
Here we go.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
I don't know how, but you nail these so well. Have you, I just have to ask, do you watch these scenes and play it back and play it back and play it back, or do you just know it off the top of your head?
What it is, Chris, is I spend an awful lot of time every day doing what I call mirror work, where basically I'm just in front of a mirror repeating lines from Bond films and just working on my delivery. Cool. Working on the voice, working on the tones. So even though I make it look easy, it is the product of a lot of hard work and study is what I will say. I
thought it might be several hours a day. You can't get a voice like that without practicing for several hours a day. So all these JBR listeners that are thinking, I can do something like that. It takes time, it takes practice, and it takes a lot of bloody hard work, doesn't it?
There you go. Absolutely. Right. Yeah.
So anyway,
thanks for the recognition.
That's all right. So I would say, this is who I thought actually straight away when you said it last time, but I think that is a certain Mr. George Lazenby in the pre-titles of On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
You got it in one. Well done. Ding.
Thanks. But that is purely, again, down to your brilliance. So we've had, just so I know, we've had Pierce, Bond, James Bond from GoldenEye, and we've had a George Bond, James Bond from Majesty. I don't think we've had any others, have we? Have we had a Roger?
Haven't.
No, we haven't. Okay, so
there will be more. There will be
more,
coming.
will there? Okay.
Yeah.
It's going to get tougher after that. Okay, so here's my new quote for today. You ready?
Yeah.
Consider him slimed.
Got him. Got that one in one. That's a good one.
Excellent. Okay, cool.
Nice.
I'll do that one more time. I think the delivery was a bit off then. Okay. Consider him slimed.
Yeah.
Still not great. Still not on it, but I think the words.
It was good enough.
Probably,
it came across. It was good.
Okay, good. There we
Excellent.
are. So have we got any listener quotes for?
We certainly do. Listeners of last week or last episode would remember this message from JBR listener Stu Bell. So let's play his quote again.
That's why I eat the peppers.
Okay, that's why I eat the peppers. Chris, any idea?
It took. When I very first heard it, it took a little while. Well, not a little. Basically, once I remembered, it seemed easy because I remembered it.
There you go. Once I remember what it was easy.
No, but I think it is quite a distinctive line. You know, you won't ever have heard anyone else saying this line, so I think I've got a good idea who it might be. Yeah.
So I also have a good idea. And again, it didn't strike me immediately. I was stuck for a while and then it just gradually waltzed into my brain at some point. So Stu was good enough to send his answer. So let's have a listen to that now.
Hello, Chris and Tom. It's Stu Bell here again. Just getting back in touch with the solution to the quote I left you. Now, I know Chris has got it, and given his intense love and deep affection for this film, I'm not surprised, but it's Felix in Quantum of Solace, and it's the scene in which Felix and Greg Beam are in their crappy little office in South America, and Beam's hassling Felix about getting sick from the water he's drinking, and that's when he says, "That's why I ate the peppers." So anyway, as Richard Osman would say, well done if you got that at home. I'll just have to put my thinking cap on and go away and see if I can come up with something slightly more obscure for the next time. But anyway, keep it up. Get reading your Marcel Proust, and I'll be in touch again soon. All right, take it easy. Cheers. Bye-bye.
So there we go, Mr. Felix Leiter, and I got that right. Did you guess that right too?
Yeah, Felix in Quantum of Solace. Yeah, that was the one.
Good stuff.
There hasn't been a line very similar to that said by anyone else, has there? And
Indeed.
The delivery was really good actually when he said it. It's
Yeah.
spot on actually.
Well done,
Very
Stu.
good. Yeah,
So
cheers, Stu.
you might remember from the last couple of episodes, we issued a challenge to JBR listener Ben Cherry because he left a review on iTunes saying he'd been listening to us since we began in February of 2014, but he hadn't worked up the courage to leave a guess the quote. So we threw out a challenge to him on the podcast, and he finally got around to it and sent us a quote. So here it is.
Hi guys, it's Ben Cherry here from Bristol in England. I've just listened to the comic book podcast and realised that you've laid down the gauntlet for me at long last to send in a quote. So, here it is. Hey Al, wherever you are, don't hold it against me. Right. I'll send another one over very shortly with the answer. Thanks, guys.
So I've got that straight away. Have you got it, Chris?
Yeah, I think I've got that one. There's a good one though. Very good.
I think there's without giving the game away, I think he's ranked right up there alongside my I didn't know there was a pool down there. I think he's done very well.
He has indeed. Indeed. Yeah.
Good work, Ben. Good to finally hear from you after all this time. Don't be a stranger.
Cheers for that. Thanks, Ben.
Good stuff. So that's the quotes are done, but we're also going to play a bonus quote this week, aren't we, Chris?
Nice.
We had a message from JBR listener Michael Kirwan, I can't quite remember how to pronounce it, but there it is, who sent us a quote and a trivia question and another follow-up question as well.
Wow.
All of which were quite interesting. So I thought we would play it, or we thought we'd play it, and kind of double up on the quotes this week. So let's listen to what Michael has to say.
Hi Tom and Chris, this is Michael Kerwin here, leaving you a quick voicemail. Firstly, I'd like to thank you on your amazing podcast. You are by far the greatest podcast out there, and I love listening in each and every single week, listening to you talk about James Bond. Firstly, I'd like to leave you a bit of trivia. And trivia is, where is Pierce Brosnan from? And now I'm looking for the country and the county in which he is from. So hopefully that won't be too difficult for you two. And secondly, I'd like to leave you a quote. I've been looking around all the James Bond films to try to find a quote that would stump both of you, but I don't think that's possible. So I'm just going to leave you with this little quote. Johnny, what have you done with it? I'll repeat that again. Johnny, what have you done with it? That's my quote for the show, guys. And just another little thing. I was always wondering, who do you think would win in a fight? Irma Bunt or Rosa Klebb? Just throwing that out there, and it'd be interesting to see what the JBR listeners have to say about it. Personally, I think Rosa Klebb would win. But that's all for now, guys. Again, keep up the fantastic work, and I love listening in each and every single week. So, thank you guys once again. Bye.
Okay, good stuff. I enjoyed hearing from Michael there, and he's made some excellent questions, and the quote was great as well. So, first of all, let's talk about the quote. Have you got that?
It's a toughie. I'll give you that for sure. And I've got I know that. Funnily enough, I know the setting of the scene where the quote is, and I know what happens. I'm just trying to think. I've got two films that it could possibly be in. I'm leaning towards one. Might possibly be the other, but I've got a good idea of.
Interesting. I'm a bit stumped, to be honest. I'm guessing by the accent he's used, it's probably an older film, I would say. I would imagine it's probably a 60s movie.
I tell you what, the way that he said it is actually spot on as well. It is. I like these. All these quotes that are coming in now are really good. It's
really
verbatim.
Solid,
verbatim from what we hear. Nice one, Michael.
So, of course, the follow-up question, which is where in Ireland is Pierce Brosnan from? Now, I've actually years ago read Pierce Brosnan's biography, so I should know that. But do you know what? It slipped my mind, and I can't quite remember where he's from.
You've answered half the question already. His question was, where's Brosnan from? What county and country? But you've already said the country, so you've got half already. Is it Athlone?
I don't know. I'm gonna
Google it now.
Yeah, I'm gonna Google it now. I'm not gonna hang around.
Let's do it.
Where is Pierce Brosnan from?
Don't you just love Google?
It says, I don't know how to say this.
County
Drogheda.
Drogheda.
Yeah, it's Drogheda.
It's pronounced Drogheda or Drogheda. Yeah.
Drogheda is an industrial and port town in County Louth on the east coast of Ireland, 56 kilometres north of Dublin. It is the last bridging point on the River Boyne before it enters the Irish Sea.
And it is also the birthplace of Pierce Brosnan.
There you go. There it is. Good stuff. Excellent question,
nice
Michael. Good stuff. And lastly, the other question you posed, who would win in a fight, Rosa Klebb or Irma Bunt? I think that's a brilliant question. And it's one that could spark quite a lot of debate. I have some thoughts on it. Would you like to hear them?
I would indeed, yeah.
I would think, when it all boiled down to it, that Rosa Klebb would probably win because she's more devious and she's got a spiky shoe, right?
I agree, the shoe.
However, I feel that Irma Bunt has the superior strength and would probably have a lot of upper body strength that she could essentially, throw Rosa across the room. You could pick her up and chuck her around. She's got the brute strength and what I'd call bulldog strength. Whereas Klebb would have to win on her cunning and guile rather than outright strength. What do you think?
Do you remember that thing that used to be on MTV called Celebrity Deathmatch? When they had putty sort of characters. Imagine Rosa Klebb, Irma Bunt, Celebrity Deathmatch. That'd be awesome. Now, I totally agree with you. I think if the shoe wasn't in place, if the shoe wasn't on the foot, as in Rosa Klebb, I think Bunt would win. I think she'd be stronger. I mean, I think her form of kill would probably be strangulation, maybe with the arms or thighs, perhaps, or just sitting on her. Suffocating her by sitting on her.
I could definitely see that.
Bit of a Yokozuna maneuver back from WWE years ago. I think with the poison shoe, though, that definitely gives Klebb the advantage because any form of close combat, Klebb will like kick out and catch Bunt. And I think
she's
ultimately,
Sorry,
go on. No, after you.
I was going to say also she's got the knuckle duster as well. So
Klebb
would be a dirty fighter. I feel though, even with the knuckle duster, her punch on Bunt would be not unlike the punch on Red Grant in the sense that it would just probably glance off and it wouldn't do much. I feel like Bunt is kind of like almost like a tank of a woman.
Yeah.
But she would, I think ultimately she would get her with the pointed shoe and just by being devious rather than actual outright fighting ability.
Yeah. I agree, and I think Klebb would take it. Yeah.
Excellent question, Michael.
Yeah, we'll have to maybe that could be a new segment, celebrity deathmatch, and then we'll pluck up 2 characters and see who wins each time. Let's do that. Should we make that a new segment?
Let's do it. Q versus M this week.
Who
would win?
I think that's amazing. Let's make that a new segment. All right. Well done, Michael. As of next week, as of next podcast, we're going to have celebrity Bond celebrity deathmatch.
You've spawned a new section. Good work, Michael. Good stuff.
Excellent.
So next up, we've got guest music cue. Let's have a listen to last week's one, which I must admit has stumped me. Don't know what it is.
It's a tricky one.
So I'm mullered on that one. So let's have a listen. Okay, so what was that? You've got me.
Now I've had a quick look in terms of some of the emails and responses and stuff we've had back. There's only one person that I found that actually got this correct, and you know what? I'm actually really surprised because it is a tricky one. It's a super tricky one. It could have been from a couple of different films. It was a David Arnold, but to get this absolutely spot on, Sean O'Hare, well done, absolutely perfect. This was from The World Is Not Enough. The track was I Never Miss, but it wasn't Bond shooting Elektra. It was actually the point where Elektra shoots Zukovsky, where she picks up the captain's hat, the submarine captain's hat, and shoots him. Mm-hmm. And it's that cue there, and Sean O'Hare got it and won. I was like, nice. Brilliant, well done, Sean. So that was the one for this week, and we have a new Guess the Music cue for this podcast. Should we listen to that one?
Let's do it. Let's have a listen.
Here we go. Now this week should be a little bit easier compared to last time. Anyway, okay, here we go.
Let's check it out. Okay, so I think I'm on the trail of that one. I think I'm gonna get that one for next week. That's cool.
I purposely made it a little bit easier than last time because last time was a bit solid. But it's also from quite a cool scene. It's a scene that I know you like. It's a scene that I like. It's quite a memorable scene, and I think the music, when you hear it, you will jump to that scene. So although it's only a small bit, I think quite a few people get this one, but it's a great bit. So not lovely bit of music as well. So
beautiful. All right, cool stuff. Okay, so that brings us on to complete
the
lyric
section.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo. Cool.
That's our new little intro. I liked it.
Nice.
So you gave me one last week, didn't you? So
I
let's hear it
did
again.
Indeed. Okay, so my complete the lyrics section from last time was the first crystal tears.
Now, I know what song that is, but that's not what you're looking for.
No,
that
it's not, but if you want to tell me the song.
Duran's of You to a Kill. I know that much.
It is indeed.
Because can you sing it to me again, please?
I'll try. I don't know if that actually helps if I'm singing, but I'll give it a go. The first crystal tears. It might help if you sing it because you'll be better at it than me. Sing it out loud and then it might follow.
Is it the line about snowflakes on your body?
Yes! Well done! The first crystal tears. 4 less snowflakes on your body. Do that.
Nice.
Do it in one. Go on. You can sing it out now.
First crystal tears, 4 snowflakes on your body.
Yeah. Excellent stuff. Well done, man.
Very
brilliant.
Nice. Cool.
That.
That's good. That was a tricky one. That nearly had me there. Yeah. Cool. All right.
Uh-oh.
Nice.
So what have you got for me this time?
I've got one that it's going to stump you. It's probably the hardest one we've ever had.
Oh, thanks very much.
And I'll be really surprised if you even get remotely close to this one.
Am I allowed to just guess the song or not?
No. And
No.
and when you actually deliver it, you have to do it in the correct accent.
Okay. So you're doing it. You're deadpanning it this time, and then you'll and then sing it next time. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah. What? Sorry.
They're looking for the cat that swallowed the rat.
I wasn't expecting that. That's brilliant. Oh my god! I'm so glad you did it deadpan as well. That's hilarious. Oh my god! Can you do it again one more time for us?
I'll do it one more time for everybody, just in case they missed it. They're looking for the cat that swallowed the rat.
That's so good. Oh
so
my god! That's
what we're looking
brilliant.
for, obviously, is the next line of that piece of music, and you know, if you can get it, the actual title of the tune as well. Lovely.
That's fantastic, man. That's so good.
Cool.
Okay, so there we
that
are.
about rounds up today's episode. It's been a mammoth one.
Yeah, it has been. It has been a huge one. Yeah. Well, I suppose we had to not only review the second half, but then go through all of the villains as well, and we had quite a bit to talk about before and stuff. So I'm excited that we've got a new segment for next time as well.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
Lots of good stuff this week.
Lots of things to look forward to. So that's good. So that is the villains of Bond put to bed. Yeah. So next time we're going to be talking about something else, and we're going to leave a hint on the Facebook page next Friday. So make sure you look out of that. Would you say there might be a slight golden flavour to the next episode?
I think there might. I think whoever listens to it will find it quite titillating.
Yes. Interesting.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Yeah. So until then, I've been Tom Sears.
I've been Chris Wright.
And James Bond Radio will return with episode 36 in 2 weeks' time. We'll see you then.
We will indeed. Take care, everyone. Bye.
See you later. Bye.